Okay, let's call this meeting to order. This is the February meeting of the City of Bloomington Transportation Commission. We'll start with a call of the roll.
Apologies for the delay.
Perhaps we should hold off on the beginning of the meeting until we're all ready.
No, you're not here. It's the oath of having All right. Connell.
Here.
Binder.
Here.
Volin.
Here?
Drummy.
Here.
Flaherty.
Here.
Davis, absent. As Sukrchenko? Almost there? Here. Thank you. Strasberg.
Here. Is that everyone? All right, we have
Here.
Oh, did I not?
Kopic is also here.
Kopic is not on my template. I apologize for that.
All right, there are 8 members here, 1 absent, no one online. Just to review the agenda, we will hold election of officers. We will hear approval of 1 set of minutes. We will hear reports and communications from commissioners and from staff, including an administrative update, an update on 180-day orders, and an update on Safe Streets for All funding. We have 5 cases listed today, including approval of pedestrian signal timing parameters, TCR 2606, TCR 2604, to approve a proposed Title 20 amendment, TCP 2602, to review in-progress transportation projects, TCP 2603, to approve a design concept for North Dunn Street multi-use path, and TCP 2605, to approve a design concept for curb ramps Phase 5. We will then go to discussion of topics not on the docket from commissioners and from staff. We'll hear general public comment on items not on the docket, and then we will adjourn. Let's start with the election of officers. Is there anyone who would like to propose? We need officers for the next year. Is there anyone who would like to propose someone to be chair of this body? Mr. Strasberg.
I nominate Steve Volin for chair.
Needs a second?
Second.
We have motion and a second. Are there any other nominations for chair? Going once? Going twice? I will accept the nomination. Can we have a roll call vote on the chair?
Let's begin with Kopic again. Kopic.
Yes.
Connell.
Yes.
Binder.
Yes.
Volin.
Yes.
Drummy.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Sukrchenko. Yes.
Perhaps we should, since you are our newest member, perhaps if you could help them with pronunciation.
Yes.
Sukrchenko.
Sukrchenko.
Ruchko.
Ruchko.
Yep. Kukuruchko.
Thank you, Commissioner
Thank you.
Sukuruchko.
Strasburg.
Yes.
That appears to have passed 8-0. I thank you all for your faith and your trust. Let's go now to nominations for the office of vice chair. Is there anyone who'd like to nominate a member of this body to be vice chair? I would pass the gavel. Did somebody have a?
I move that Commissioner Strasburg serve as vice chair in 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Strasburg, would you take the job if? All right. Any other discussion about the vice chair? Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Connell.
Yes.
Binder.
Yes.
Volin.
Yes.
Drummy.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Sukurinchko.
Correct, yes.
Sorry, I'm going to apologize all night. I apologize. Strasburg.
Yes.
Okay.
That's everyone? That's 8-0?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, Kopic. Sorry.
all right. Now it's 8-0. Congratulations, Mr. Strasburg. Thank you for serving. All right, let's now go to approval of minutes. The last minutes were for November 2025. Are there any comments, corrections to the minutes? To my left? To my right? Seeing none, if we can have a roll call vote on the minutes for November 2025.
Binder.
Yes.
Volin.
Yes.
Drummy.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Sukurinchko.
Yes.
I'm going to need you to, if you could write it out phonetically for me. Thank you. Strasburg.
Yes.
Kopic.
Yes.
Connell.
Abstain.
Is that everyone?
Yes. Yes, it should be.
I don't remember saying yes. So I'll say yes
Oh.
to.
Apologies. Volin.
Okay, that is 7. I said yes. That's 701. Those minutes are approved. Let's start with reports from commissioners. Let me just take the opportunity to welcome our newest commissioner, Alexandra Sukuruchko. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to give you the first opportunity to say hello and to talk at all about yourself and why you came to the commission, if you would.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I'm very glad to join. I'm a designer by my profession, and I'm quite interested in urban design and in city of Bloomington because I live in here. I've been based in here for past almost 5 years. I've been interested in this domain for quite a long time. I work for tech, but design in broad meaning, so I would love to contribute to the city and well, improve it for myself as a citizen too.
Well, Commissioner Sukuruchko, just getting the chance to practice say your name. Thank you for joining the commission, and we look forward to your contributions.
Pleasure to join. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members who have reports? On my left. Any members with a report? On my right, Commissioner Flaherty.
Yeah, just briefly, reminded by a member of the public who joined us, Mr. Alexander, that a topic of conversation at the last 2 regular sessions of the City Council has been the ability of the city to respond to effectively and have policy in place that is effective in securing a safe and accessible pedestrian network and infrastructure in the wake of large snowstorms. And so that came up from some reports from members of the public at the City Council meetings, and then I delivered a report at the council meeting last week highlighting what constituents had shared, some of the concerns about it, and kind of the array of ways we might approach this issue. And it occurred to me, I'd like for the City Council to engage on it, possibly in a deliberative session of their own, to work on policy and operations. But I think this commission can and should be involved. It's very squarely within the purview, so that could take the form of, the chair and vice chair being invited to that deliberation session, for instance. We could actually consider and have some conversation around challenges, opportunities, policy proposals here in this body as well. So just wanted to raise that for folks' awareness. I know you all think about these issues too, so probably not far from your minds in the wake of that very big snowstorm in particular, and areas where you have room for improvement on, ensuring our pedestrian infrastructure in particular is safe and accessible. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Any other reports from commissioners on my right? Seeing none, we'll take a crack. I would like to say that since the previous meeting, I have actually had to undergo open heart surgery. And the fact that I'm up and around now is a minor miracle. But because I can no longer, for the time being, I cannot lift anything of substance and I cannot drive, I found myself, for the first time, a captive rider of the local bus system. And it's been a while since I had no other way to get around, but sure enough, I downloaded the UMO app, I believe it's called, and was able to navigate the bus system quite effectively. It delivered me to not one, but two different medical addresses with a minimum of fuss. And I have to say that I have joined the commission by dint of being someone who uses an e-scooter frequently, but even that is something I don't feel like I can trust myself to ride at the moment since I'm fragile. And so I'm very pleased to say that I have become a regular rider of Bloomington Transit, and my compliments to Mr. Connell and everyone at BT, and I thank them for their service. If there are no other reports from commissioners, we'll go now to reports from staff. Let's start with an administrative update. Who will be presenting this update? Mr. Seabour, I presume?
I apologize for those of you online. I did not catch that the mute button was toggled. There are two different places it can be muted. I missed one of them, so I apologize.
There's been no need for anyone online to speak yet. Is there a staff member?
No, it's just for the meeting minutes part. We lack a voice record for the reports that commissioners have just made.
I see. Which staff member is going to present the administrative update?
That'll be me.
Okay. Ms.
One
Bull?
moment, please. Can you go ahead and find it on the thing? The administrative update is pretty brief. For those of you who've been paying attention to packets, you might have noticed that between our January and our February meetings that the numbering scheme for agenda items looked a little odd, and that's because when items were assigned to an agenda in January, they were sort of committed in a way in our recording system, and then we did not copy over that schedule one-to-one for February. We had to make some adjustments given staff being out and the weather and just some items becoming more timely than they were. So regret any confusion this causes, but the purpose of this is to allow us to bring cases forward multiple times in a year. So moving forward, hopefully it'll be more evident when something was heard earlier in the year when we hear it again later. We have a scheduling conflict for our 2026 schedule. There are city council budget hearings scheduled for August 24th. If we don't reschedule, we lose access to council chambers. I recommend either that we cancel the meeting or that we reschedule it for August 31st.
Is that the extent of your update?
There are other small changes that I've included as part of the change log. If you recall, every time we change our templates or documents or update anything, I try to make a record of it for transparency's sake. This has been updated. This table in our packet represents changes that we've committed since the November meeting. I'm not going to go through them line by line because they're minutia. Yeah, that is the extent of my update. If you don't mind discussing the meeting schedule and what you guys would like to do about that.
I think it'd be best if we made it an agenda item for a future meeting so that members can consult their schedules.
Okay.
Since we've had this set for a couple of months, let's make it a item for a future meeting, a case for a future meeting.
Will do. I'll make that note. Thank
Great.
you.
All right, let's move now. Are there any questions for staff on the administrative update? To my right? To my left? Seeing none, we'll move on to the 180-day order update. Mr. Seabour?
Yes, Andrew Seabour, City Engineer. Before I jump to the 180-day order, I do also just want to use this opportunity to make a significant update that I think will soon come out in a city-issued press release that the City Engineering Department is happy to welcome our newest member. We have a traffic engineer, a position that's been hard to fill. It was created over 2 years ago, and we have found an awesome person to fill that position for us. He is here with us today. His name is John Garzi. He's about a month in. Since he moved here, I guess he moved here from San Francisco, where he worked there at the local agency, and he's had an awesome experience of seeing a national championship, record snowfall, 60-degree temperatures, and tornadoes in February. And so he knows this is the normal in Bloomington. But no, we're just happy to welcome here, and I just want to introduce him, just give that chance, and expect to see more of him in future meetings.
Would he like to say a few words? Please, introduce yourself.
Hello, hi, my name is John Garzi. As Andrew said, I've come from San Francisco. I grew up there, and I spent almost 31 years there. And I'm really happy to be here in Bloomington. It feels like a very great place to raise a family and to bike and walk and drive around. So really happy to contribute and help make this place a safer place to move around. So thank you.
We thank you for being here. We welcome you to our humble town. We hope you can fix our traffic problems. And if you don't, well, never mind. All right, Mr. Seabour, please continue. Thank you again.
Thank you for that. So just my 180-day order update. Since our last meeting, I have issued one new order. It's an item that we previously discussed regarding some no parking on the south side of East 19th Street that was associated with a new development and improvements for line of sight related issues. So that has been issued. And there are a series of, I believe, 4 180-day orders that I extended that have just been in place and we're nearing their expiration. So one regarding on-street parking on Park Ridge, one regarding stop control at Longview and Concord, a couple stop-controlled intersections on 13th Street, and some on-street parking changes on South Washington. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on these.
Are there any questions on 180-day orders? To my right? To my left? I have one question. The new order on East 19th Street, I seem to recall that I think it's even in the minutes from the last meeting that they're expecting that to take until 2027 to be completed. So is this order just to sort of allow them to construct?
Good question. There's a couple parts to it. One is the development project is still under construction. It's a construction zone, so a part of what was reviewed is associated with that. But the line of sight related issue is just adjacent to it, but on the same road. And so that we did install some signage for, but the one adjacent to the project will come when it's
So do you
wrapped up.
expect this order to be lifted because you'll have signage in place by June, or that it's going to stay in place until 2027, you think?
I expect that it will stay in place until code is updated to reflect the conditions.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move now to an update on Safe Streets for All funding. Who will present this? I see Hank Duncan coming to the podium.
Hello, Hank Duncan, Safe Streets Program Coordinator, Program Manager, new new position for me. I wanted to present some fun news on the Safe Streets for All grant that we received recently. So in the summer of 2025, the City of Bloomington applied for the U.S. Department of Transportation Safe Streets for All grant program. This is a program with roughly $1 billion available to communities with an adopted Safe Streets for All or Vision Zero action plan. These projects are made available for planning, demonstration, and implementation. We were, in late December, the USDO team notified city staff that the city had been awarded $1.44 million towards planning and demonstration projects outlined in its Safe Streets for All action plan and grant program application. With a 20% match from the city will spend $1.8 million on Safe Streets projects over the next 5 years through this grant program. I'll go through the proposed projects at a high level and let you ask questions in more detail if needed. So we were awarded, or we plan to allocate $1 million towards corridor studies through the next 5 years, primarily focusing on the South Walnut corridor, starting at Dodd Street and going southbound to Gordon Pike. Additionally, with the demonstration projects, we intend to allocate $300,000 towards hardened center lines. We intend to allocate $350,000 towards traffic signal conversions, that being traffic signal to roundabout or traffic signal to all-way stop conversions. And then we're allocating $150,000 towards demonstration materials that could be used for various projects and sites along or around the Safe Streets priority network in the city. That could be delineator posts, it could be parking blocks or traffic barriers, rumble strips, et cetera. There are a lot of possibilities. And I'm very excited about it. This is going to be a busy 5 years for all of us, but happy to answer any questions.
Is that the complete report, or do you want us to talk about each point separately?
I absolutely can,
Okay.
but it may be more productive for you to ask any questions about each project, and I can go into more detail, but if you would like me to go through each project, I'm more than happy to.
So we're talking about corridor studies now, right?
We're talking about the corridor studies, demonstration projects, and the materials toolkits.
Got it. Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Duncan on these projects? Mr. Drummy?
I guess I have a few questions. When you say, for example, you said $1 million is going to be allocated toward
Corridor studies?
corridor study.
Yeah.
Is that $1 million going to be spent like with outside vendors, or that's internal allocation, external allocation? We're going to spend $1 million worth of resources just to do the corridor study?
So there will be, no doubt, a lot of resources done or that are completed in-house. We have an incoming alternative transportation coordinator next month, hopefully. We have a growing long-range planning team, and we're hoping to do more of that outreach and analysis in-house. That said, there will be still a focus on external vendors to essentially do the parts of corridor studies that we are unable to do in-house. That could be conceptual designs, that could be renderings, that could be corridor analysis, et cetera. This is going to be, these types of corridor studies may be different in scope than what we've seen as a community before. We've focused more on the initial step of completing a conceptual design. That could be outreach, that could be analysis, and then that final step of renderings and maybe a 10% design. For this, we could focus on spending this money on getting up to maybe a 35% design to really make this engineering ready, so if we have funds for a complete design and the construction, we would be more ready to pursue that. Or, again, this can change, but there may be a possibility that we spend some of this money on South Walnut, but then keep it at a pretty high level, keeping it at maybe a 10% conceptual design, and then if there's another corridor we'd like to focus on, we could do that as well.
But does the work you do internally, the city does internally, is that allocated toward the million? So if the engineering department invests $250,000 worth of effort, does that go toward the $1 million investment? Does that make sense? Or is that only money used for external vendors?
I believe it's only used for external vendors. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Drummy. Questions on my right? Mr. Flaherty.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Could you tell us a bit more about how the proposed $1 million on the corridor studies, in particular the focus on South Walnut Street, how that interacts with or supports or extends prior study on the Walnut and College corridor? Is it that that's from Dodds up north to like the bypass and we haven't done this southern section, or is it we have done this at a conceptual level and now we want to get more detailed with engineering studies? Like how does this fit into the, I think, multi-year running study underway?
Yeah, that is a great question. Quite honestly, the reason that this initial corridor study that you're talking about, so the one from the bypass down to Allen Street, that we proposed that project area is because that is the one-way section of the corridor. This next one is already two-way, so we might be looking at different items. Again, everything runs together, but I would say that this is essentially a different corridor study than what we have been doing. There may be, and there will be some overlap there, especially at that Dodds and Walnut area, where you have that combination back into a two-way street. But for the most part, we're looking further south. We're looking at the monolithic sidewalks or the 4 or 5 lane streets, the area by Bloomington South High School that could easily be improved. And then further south from there where there are some sidewalk gaps and so forth. So to answer the question, there is a little bit of overlap, but I would consider this a completely separate study from what we've been doing.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions? Mr. Binder.
Thank you. Just wanted to just want to find out if you could outline for us kind of what the next immediate steps are going to be, and if the commission will hear another future update fairly soon on the progress made on Safe Seas for All implementation.
Regarding an update, there will be more updates. I'm giving you a very high level overview of these projects because, frankly, there are still questions that we need to answer internally before we make anything happen on the ground. The next immediate steps will be, one, getting a formal grant agreement in place with the US DOT. That hasn't happened yet, and so we are holding any progress on procuring materials, starting design contracts until that happens. After that, then we will start focusing on probably one of these demonstration items or a corridor study and begin the process to begin a design contract, and then really figure out how we're going to evaluate success with these different projects. The whole purpose of these demonstration projects is to demonstrate tangible benefits in our community. And so a big question is, how have other cities done it? How can we do it better? And at the end of the day, what does success look like? So some of these projects that I'm talking about won't happen this year or even next year. They might happen 2 or 3 years down the road. But some other projects like the South Walnut Corridor Study, we would like to kick that off hopefully later this year. That's the plan. Right now we're in the middle of the Rogers, Madison, and Kinzer Pike Corridor Study, but hopefully around August or September, we will be on the move with the South Walnut Corridor Study and other demonstration projects.
Mr. Kopic.
Yeah, Hank, as you go through these, like the hardened center lines and the traffic signal conversions, what do you see the Transportations Commission involvement being in this process?
Yeah, that is a great question. Honestly, I don't know if I have a full answer yet. I would assume that it's similar to what we're doing with our other projects, our more concrete capital projects, where we will come up and prioritize locations for these different projects and then come to you with a concept and idea for review before we actually put this in the ground. Exactly what that may look like, I'm not sure, because this is new to everyone. But again, there will be further chances to review each location and exactly what we're doing at these locations before we actually put it in the ground.
Mr. Kopic, I would expect that we should all see, as members of the commission, we should expect that projects like this will come to us, that we should be knowledgeable about them, speak about the public with them, and that in most cases we'll actually be asked to approve project designs. So I assume that our responsibility doesn't stop with funding, and even then we don't always get to approve funding. So, but I expect that we'll be approving designs.
Correct.
Okay. I got a couple questions. study of Walnut Street, the College and Walnut Street corridor, which I assume is points north that you're talking about.
So I will be honest, I'm not the project manager for this project, so I will answer what I can. It won't be as in-depth as a project manager could. We are in the final stages of this corridor study. We were actually sent this past Friday the proposed cost estimates for the different concepts along College and Walnut. We're at an internal review stage right now, and then hopefully later this spring, I would say spring, maybe early summer, a review or a plan comes to you, and then council, maybe plan commission. I'm not totally familiar on what that process looks like, but a plan will come to you to review, I would assume, later this spring.
Okay, so second quarter.
Yes.
Okay. Second question is, I am very intrigued by the idea of traffic signal conversions. So again, just to review what you're saying here, part of the money that you've just received is going to be to temporarily convert up to 5 existing traffic signals, either from signals to always stops or to, here's a phrase that I never thought I would hear, temporary single-lane roundabouts.
Correct.
How did such a miracle come to be, and which intersections are you thinking about? Let's start with the how did such a miracle come to be that we can have a roundabout in a single lane?
Would an engineer like to talk about capacity?
I'm looking at figure 3, and it looks like it takes about 2 lanes. Nevertheless, it's a 2-lane street that has a little roundabout in it, and it just warms the cockles of my grizzled and jaded transportation-loving heart.
So I'll start with that second question of which intersections, and I think that will help go into
Yes,
the
thank you for putting that picture up there, yeah.
And that'll hopefully help go into the process of how we're going to choose each intersection. That is, essentially, we don't know which intersections yet we're going to choose. That will be, I'm sure, a deep conversation between planning and engineering staff of which intersections are on the Safe Streets for All Priority Network, which intersections have crashes that could be minimized by including a roundabout, and then 3, looking at the capacity of each intersection and if a single lane roundabout would be able to hold or carry that many vehicles on a given day.
So I should ask, why is it that you would believe that a signal, I mean, most people think of the signal as the apotheosis of traffic control, that it's the best way to control traffic. But I gather that maybe staff isn't so enamored of a traffic signal. Why would we replace a light with one of these? Who could answer that?
Yeah, I guess theoretically, I would say a traffic signal and a roundabout are very comparable in the capacity of them. And to your question about, in certain communities like Carmel would certainly say one is better than another and can be just as efficient and just as, they would say, safer. And then on your question about a single lane roundabout, I guess just the terminology there is a single lane roundabout involves like a single circular lane within the circle. So there would still be like a 1-lane approach and a 1-lane exit, so it'd be 2-lane roads typically intersecting.
Okay, so the lanes are referring to the roundabout and not to the road that it's going on.
Correct. It's usually the number of lanes in the circle itself.
Okay. In other words, it might be better to get rid of a signal simply because it would cost less to maintain such an intersection because you don't have to run electric to it. Is that it?
That is one of the benefits of a roundabout.
Can I put in an early candidate for you to consider? Because I recall about, I'm looking at Councilor Flaherty here, who I once served with, and there was quite a discussion about the corner of Moores Pike and College Mall Road, perhaps being a roundabout instead of a signal. And I was curious if that's the kind of intersection that would be a candidate for such an experiment.
I would say, without having looked at that deeply, yes, that is the type of intersection we would be looking at.
Mr. Flaherty, did you have any thoughts on this? I didn't want to call you out for speaking unless you wanted to speak.
Just that I know that one's complex because of creeks running underneath it. multiple lanes, hills. That one might be especially difficult, non-orthogonal intersections. But I am interested in this project as well, very supportive of it, especially prioritized places where we think it would make the most positive impact in safety and, yeah, traffic flow. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. The last question is about hardened center lines, another thing that I think is very interesting. Can you give us an example of an intersection that is, in your opinions, perhaps most in need of a hardened center line? And can we put the picture of the hardened center line on the screen? These are examples from Seattle and Chicago, I believe. And maybe if you can just illustrate for us kind of what's going on there, because this is not the easiest image to see at home.
So to your first question of which intersection is most in need, honestly, there are quite a few intersections along the Safe Streets for All priority network that could be benefited from hardened center lines.
Did you say 6th Street?
No, I'm sorry. There are tons of intersections around the city that could benefit from hardened center lines.
Okay.
And I don't want to name one particular because I haven't done a deep analysis of this yet. But I'm sure we've all experienced, either as a driver, or pedestrian, cyclist, transit user, when you are at a major intersection and as a driver, if you are turning left, it is very easy to maybe cut the corner and have a wider turning radius, which allows you to keep more speed or create more speed going through the turn. One, we know that speed causes injuries and fatalities. Two, we know that wider turning radii creates more speed and less direct sight lines with that perpendicular street user, in this case, a pedestrian walking across the crosswalk. And so these hardened center lines, they create slower, more direct, tighter turns, more intentional turns that essentially as a driver, you have to slow down more to go around these, and then that makes it safer for everyone overall because of slower speeds, but then your sight lines are more direct onto the crosswalk so you can more easily see that pedestrian crossing the street.
Got it. Thank you. It's a very interesting idea. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it in the future. Any other questions from commissioners about Safe Streets for All funding? Seeing none, thank you so much for your
Thanks.
time. By the way, that image was on page 29 of our current packet draft 2. Let's now move to cases. Let's start by hearing TCR 2606 to approve pedestrian signal timing parameters. Who is presenting this? I see Neil Copper coming to the podium.
Yes, good evening, Neil Copper with the Engineering Department. I'm presenting this tonight, and also just to note that our new employee, John Garzi, is quickly getting up to speed on this topic and becoming even more involved on it. I want to start by talking about City Council Resolution 23-17. That was a resolution that requested two main kind of policies. So the first was establish a citywide policy to prioritize the use of leading pedestrian intervals at signalized intersections when feasible, especially in areas with high pedestrian activity, while reasonably balancing the goals set out in the city comprehensive plan, including the transportation plan. And then the second was to establish a citywide policy to prioritize pedestrian recall as the default mechanism over actuated signals for pedestrian crossings at signalized intersections, especially in areas with high pedestrian activity, while reasonably balancing the goals set out in the city comprehensive plan, including the transportation plan. So with that resolution as background, the city is underway in a signal retiming project. We have a consultant looking at signal timing for all of the city's traffic signals. It's supported by federal funding through the Highway Safety Improvement Program. So federal funding is covering 90% of the costs. The city is covering the remaining 10% local match. As part of that project, our consultant is developing the policies that were requested through that resolution that I just listed. I want to emphasize that this policy is still very much in draft form. We wanted to bring it to you well before it was final to get additional input on this. So staff has we have a list of relatively minor comments and other updates that we want to be made to the policy, but we're hoping to hear from you. Our consultant has looked at best practices, policies from other cities with similar goals to Bloomington, and then they've tried to balance the policies in other cities with kind of the context of Bloomington. So typically you'll see these types of policies in much larger cities, and we're kind of scaling them to Bloomington. So volume thresholds that might be applicable in New York City are going to be very different than what we actually want to use here. So I'm going to give you a brief summary of the kind of strategies that we're looking at. So first, the leading pedestrian interval, or LPI. So this is a signal timing strategy that gives pedestrians just a few seconds of head start before the vehicles get a green light. So it allows a pedestrian to be in a more visible position in the intersection before a turning vehicle would actually enter the crosswalk. In many instances, it actually allows a pedestrian to kind of clear that conflict point before a turning vehicle would enter. It's most beneficial at areas where you have relatively high turning volumes from vehicles and also have a lot of people walking. Of course, if nobody was turning, it wouldn't be necessary, or if nobody was walking, it wouldn't be necessary. To be most effective, this also requires a no turn on red restriction so that those vehicles aren't just turning on red during that leading pedestrian interval. I'll also note there's a kind of a variant on this called the leading through interval. Basically, if you have a dedicated turn lane, or if you're at a one-way street where no turn is possible anyway, then you can hold those turning vehicles and allow the through vehicles to go at the same time as the pedestrians, and then allow turning vehicles to go. The next topic is called pedestrian recall. So this is a setting that automatically provides a walk signal for pedestrians every cycle, regardless of whether or not somebody comes and pushes the push button. So needing to press a push button as a pedestrian, it can be viewed as an inequity, where somebody walking you have to perform this action in order for the traffic signal to serve you, whereas somebody driving in a car, you're either being passively detected or it's just going to automatically serve your movement every single time. If you've ever heard the term beg button for a pedestrian push button, that's kind of where that idea comes from. There definitely are practical reasons behind not wanting to have to push a button. One of those is if you arrive right after the green light for cars came in your direction, but you hadn't pushed the button yet, and then you push the button, it won't serve you. You'll actually have to sit there through that green, and then through the conflicting green, and then at the next opportunity for green, it will serve you. So that can be very frustrating. There are also less desirable contexts for pedestrian recall. Typically, if you're thinking about an isolated intersection where you've got a high volume street intersecting with a lower volume street, and that lower volume side street doesn't have many vehicles or pedestrians, typically that intersection would actually sit on green for that main street. But if you had pedestrian recall activated, then it would cycle through that side street even with nobody present, every, say, minute and a half. And so that main street traffic is coming to a stop, sitting there while nobody is going, and then starting again and just repeating. So definitely want to look at context. It's most valuable where you have high pedestrian activity. Think of downtown, of course. High pedestrian demand also. If there's a multi-use path, it can be very desirable. If you think of somebody riding a bicycle on the multi-use path and them having to navigate over and push a button in order to get the walk sign to proceed through the crosswalk, that can be undesirable. And then we do have some intersections that do not have any pedestrian push buttons. And so that's a location where it's actually required to be in pedestrian recall because there is nothing to push. And I just do want to highlight that even with pedestrian recall, it is still beneficial to have those pedestrian push buttons. Those serve an accessibility function. They provide additional information to a person with disabilities. So even with pedestrian recall, we typically still do want to have those push buttons, and that's what we're doing with all of our signal replacements. Got one more. So rest and walk. This was not part of the council resolution, but it does have a lot of similarities for prioritizing pedestrians. So rest and walk is when your pedestrian walk sign is displayed for the entire duration, or pedestrians are allowed to cross for the entire duration of the adjacent parallel green movement for motor vehicles. The alternative is you do kind of a minimum calculated walk interval, you go through the clearance flashing don't walk interval, and then you've got the solid red hand don't walk, but the parallel movement for motor vehicles is still green. Cars can still keep going, you know, maybe they have a higher cycle length, but as a pedestrian you show up and you've got a red hand that says don't cross. Do you wait? Do you cross illegally? That's kind of the conflict that can come up. The current draft that's outlined in the packet actually links this setting to a pedestrian volume threshold. It says, if you have a pedestrian volume of at least this much, then you should do rest and walk. We've pushed back on our consultant a little bit on that and kind of questioning why. Basically, the idea is that there's no inherent impact to the traffic signal timing to implement rest and walk. The time that you're adding to that pedestrian walk is time that is already green for motor vehicles. You're not taking away from anything. There are some challenges. It's not possible to do everywhere, particularly when if you have a traffic signal that adjusts to the vehicular demand at that intersection. You have detection. Your signal says, okay, I can tell all the cars have gone through here. I'm not detecting any more cars. I'd like to change and let the opposite movement go through. But if you still have your walk sign up, instead of being able to change immediately, you then have to go through your flashing, your countdown timer of don't walk. So maybe it's 15, 14, 13, it goes through that whole sequence instead of being able to turn immediately. So there can be some trade-offs there for sure. Where we think we're landing is updating the policy so that we would implement rest and walk basically anywhere where a pedestrian recall is used, kind of follow those same thresholds instead of having some separate higher threshold that you have to meet in order to include this. That's my attempt, at least, at a quick description of those. You'll notice I haven't been listing the specific kind of quantitative thresholds that are listed in the packet. It can be hard to picture how those thresholds even correlate, to a real-world example. In general, you're going to see more use of these in the central areas with higher pedestrian use and less at a more isolated signal. So if you think of downtown College and Walnut, you're going to see all three of those features that I just described. And then if you think of, North Walnut at Old 37 off all by itself, you wouldn't see any of those features. I'm happy to take questions or comments on anything that you have, emphasizing again that this is draft and we're hoping to hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Copper, for the presentation. Let's go now to first round questions from members. I'm going to start on my left with Mr. Stossberg.
One intersection that's joint custody with the state is 3rd and Clariz. Could that be a candidate for the leading pedestrian interval or not because of the state ownership?
I would say not a candidate for us because it's a state-owned and controlled intersection.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Binder.
Thank you. This is a promising project. I'm wondering if you are looking at any cases in which someone pressing a button would cause the walk signal to be available more quickly than if the button hadn't been pressed. I think I'm asking that because I think I've witnessed a lot of confusion from the public on the actual purpose of the button and when the button should be pressed or not pressed and what pressing the button actually does. Because I've heard some people say, it won't change to a walk signal unless you press the button. I've heard other people say, press the button and you'll get a walk signal more quickly. So I think there's quite a lot to be desired in terms of maybe informing the public on what the purpose of the button is. And I just want to go back to my question also about whether you're looking at cases where in an automatic cycle, pressing the button would provide a walk signal, faster, a few seconds earlier than if the button hadn't been pressed.
Yeah, so, first I want to say I think you're exactly right that there's a lot of challenges with messaging there, and it is tricky because in different contexts, the answer is different. Some traffic signals, if you push the button, it doesn't change anything. And at some traffic signals, if you don't push the button, you won't get your walk sign. So it is definitely challenging to message that. At other, also at traffic signals, depending on most of our newer pedestrian push buttons have accessibility features where if you hold the button down, it will give you different information or can even extend the walk period for you if that's something that you require. So, messaging all those different things is a real challenge. To your question of would it bring up the walk sign sooner? I would say in most cases it won't. In most of our corridors with a coordinated signal system where the signals are kind of working together as a system, we are already trying to have as short of a cycle length as we can. That's generally desirable, especially for people walking and biking, to have shorter cycle lengths, whereas longer cycle lengths tend to be more beneficial for people in motor vehicles and increasing capacity. So if you're already at that short cycle length, and it's just, when it kind of gets around to your turn, it doesn't really change whether it doesn't make it come up any sooner. But if you're thinking of that isolated intersection, if you're at Walnut and 37, pushing the button is necessary, and it would come up sooner in the sense that it may not come up at all unless you push the button.
Just a real quick follow-up question. I guess I'm having trouble understanding what the purpose of the button is in cases where pushing the button does not actually do anything.
Yeah, a lot of that goes back to accessibility. So our adopted accessibility guidelines do require those pedestrian push buttons. They provide they provide other information that most of us don't need. So the button itself, actually, there's a physical arrow that you can feel on the button. The button will vibrate when it gives that walk sign. Depending on the geometry of the intersection, there will either be a percussive tone or it'll say something like Walnut, walk sign is on to cross Walnut. Like all of those features are within that button that provide other information to people.
Further questions, first round from my colleagues before I ask one? Okay, I wanted to just talk about leading pedestrian intervals. The one that I'm most familiar with is the northbound on Indiana, or on Henderson as it turns into no, it's on Indiana. It's Indiana by then, at 3rd Street. People trying to turn left onto 3rd Street, there is a leading pedestrian interval. The walk sign goes on before the light turns green, and it allows people to get a head start crossing at the intersection. And I admire it very much. Can you name any other similar intersections currently in place in the city?
So leading pedestrian interval is a strategy that we've been very interested in, and we've been very constrained by older signal equipment, older technology.
Oh, no kidding.
So most of our older signals, we actually could not implement leading pedestrian intervals. That has changed over the last few years, where I would say now the majority of our equipment is ready to do leading pedestrian intervals. We have kind of a unique leading pedestrian interval at the intersection of 3rd and Woods Crest. That's actually longer than usual. It was a specific request and discussion with residents in the area about a particular conflict. I can't immediately think of any other leading pedestrian intervals that we have active, but it has been on our list for a long time, and we're excited that we have the equipment to do it.
So for people who would like to see LPI in action, those are the two intersections right now that currently have it. 3rd and Indiana and 3rd and Woods Crest.
I think 3rd and Indiana is probably the best example. that you mentioned, that's technically would be a leading through interval, like I mentioned earlier, because it's only that left turn, I believe, that is
Right.
held back.
Did equipment need to be upgraded at 3rd and Indiana to make that possible?
Yeah, that entire signal was replaced a couple years ago.
Got it. So that's one of the few new ones that can handle it. Okay, thank you for that. Are there any further questions before we go to public comment on this case? Mr. Strasburg?
You mentioned 3rd Street is a state-owned. Can you remind us what the process is in a situation like that where a road is physically within our city, but it's owned by the state? You mentioned downtown. Another dense shopping area we have is College Mall, which has those state roads that go through it. So how do we advocate for improvements, similar improvements on the state roads in our city?
I mean, maybe the short answer is we should be coordinating with NDOT, right? We as a city don't have any control to make those changes, but we can, we do have partners at NDOT. We do communicate with them regularly. I think part of it is making them aware that desire is there. Ultimately, that it would be a state decision.
Okay, seeing no further questions, we're going to go to the public for comment on TCR 2606. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak to this, please come to the podium. If you are attending the meeting on Zoom, please reuse the raise hand function, and we will call on you as soon as possible. Let's start with the person in the room. Please sign in and state your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thanks. My name is Greg Alexander. At an intersection where you have to beg, you wait on average twice as long as drivers do. That's a simple fact. It's a lower level of service. We shouldn't have that anywhere in the city. It violates our transportation plan. Pedestrians are a higher priority than drivers, not conditionally, but a higher priority. At an intersection where you have to beg, the safety is lower. I'm sure you've seen this too. A pedestrian or a group of pedestrians more often will come to an intersection. It's safe to cross at the moment they come there, but they stop because it says don't walk, and they stand around until eventually they realize this thing's never going to change. And then they proceed at that moment. That's quite often the least safe moment to proceed. I've seen that. I've seen many close calls from that. That's, safety is more important than capacity, full stop. That's in our Safe Streets for All action plan. We don't have a choice about that. It's been approved by the City Council. Pedestrian recall isn't necessarily important. What's important is that if the light is green for cars, then it needs to be green for pedestrians also. That's a really fundamental principle. The opposite is already status quo. Like if you press the beg button and it does eventually give you a walk signal, of course it's going to give you the green for the cars as well. It can be achieved. It doesn't have to be pedestrian recall. We could configure the lights so that when the car calls for service, the pedestrian also calls for service automatically. That can be done physically, even if the computer doesn't support it, just by running a jumper from one detector to another. As far as specific recommendations for the requirements, every intersection that's crossed by a side path or greenway needs pedestrian recall, full stop, non-negotiable. We spent so much money on these pedestrian priorities that to then sabotage them at every intersection is irresponsible. Intersections should not switch to car priority at night. We shouldn't have hours on this. Pedestrians are most vulnerable at night. It is a fact that at night there's less traffic and drivers drive faster. That's a bug. That is not a feature. That is a lethal attribute of our transportation system. So, this is an improvement over the status quo, which is just that a bunch of unsupervised employees in public works wind up configuring our lights, but I think we could actually reach for good. We shouldn't say that there should be a criteria where this intersection is allowed to screw over pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Is there anybody else in the room who would like to speak to the issue? If not, is there anybody online who has raised their hand? Next poll. Has anybody raised their hand in Zoom?
No one has raised their hand on Zoom.
Okay, last call for public comment on TCR 2606. Going twice. We'll come back to the commission for further questions. Any last questions on my right? Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you. Just a clarification on process. So there's proposed findings here. This is a sort of, but Mr. Copper sort of noted this was a policy in development. Would it come back to us in final form, or is this kind of the moment to weigh in, and there might be, even though there may be tweaking from here?
Yeah, I think the answer is somewhat dependent on your reaction. If you all said this is garbage and we want it 180 degrees the other direction, then of course we want to come back with something different. If you said, hey, this is generally in the direction we want to go and here are some tweaks, we may just take that and move forward. Yeah. I would say weigh in now, please.
Got it. Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on your question. So, yeah, as I look at this, this is a resolution of the commission, but it's not clear exactly what you're asking us to vote on. The only thing that I see is so-called definitions, which I think we have found generally agreeable. But I guess what I'm wondering is, why is this not in a format that directly shows, I mean, are these definitions things you would put in city code?
I don't believe there's an intent to put the definitions into city code. The portion that we're more interested in you weighing in on is the section called requirements that lists kind of thresholds and guidance for when to implement these.
Okay, so where would the requirements live if they were approved?
So at the moment, the intent is that it would be a policy document that we are creating. I don't believe there's been discussions about codifying that policy document. It would be an administrative policy.
It's fine. I mean, it doesn't need to be in city code. It's just that's sort of a traditional understanding I have of, I mean, like a commission would pass a resolution that might, for example, recommend changes to city code. What has been unclear for me is, are you suggesting that this is a new, this policy document doesn't exist yet, and that engineering is developing such a document that would be called for in city code? In other words, when in doubt, these issues will be decided by this policy document. That's what the code would say. Is that the idea?
So the policy document does not exist. As you said, we are creating it, as you said. I don't have an immediate answer as to whether there would be anything codified that says, refer to that policy document, but it would be our intent to utilize that policy when making decisions.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Are there any further questions from commissioners on my left? On my right, Ms. Sukorichko.
Yeah, I would like to clarify, what were the alternatives? Like, did we consider any other solutions for the one we're discussing right now?
I'm sorry, your mic's not picking up very well. Was the question, are there alternatives?
Right. Did we consider any alternatives to the solution we're discussing right now, exploring right now?
So there could be alternative thresholds and different levels. There could be a decision that that we not use these for some reason. Just to be clear, there are many other signal timing variables. So one that immediately comes to mind is the use of protected only left turns instead of permitted left turns. So permitted left turn, you're able to turn left as long as there's no conflicting traffic coming the other direction. A protected left turn, you've got the green arrow. There is no conflicting traffic. You have the right of way to make that left turn. So there are decisions about when do you allow protected left turns versus permitted left turns, where when a protected left turn, you would not do that during a concurrent walk phase, but a permissive left turn is during a concurrent walk phase. So there are many other signal timing parameters. This covers the two that were specifically requested through the council resolution, and one that was just so similar that we wanted to have it in the same policy document.
Mr. Flaherty, then Mr. Binder.
So the resolution, which I worked with you all on and authored in 2023, was actually about the comprehensive plan amendment, which I'm not sure was ever formalized. I did talk to Director Hiddle about this, and I think he sort of had the opinion that the Safe Streets for All action plan, by way of the transportation plan, by way of the comp plan, maybe was that, and when we adopted SSFA, it satisfied this. So one, just confirming, is that the understanding among staff who are here with us now? And then second, just thinking about some of the feedback from Mr. Alexander, some of the overall intent of this, is it going to be, can the policy be like living in some way where we like are collecting data, I hope? I don't know if we have good enough data now to be able to assess like how this is affecting safety, for instance. Also, like once it's actually implemented, we make the final decisions on all the different signalized intersections, like mapping that in some way, knowing where these different features are, and thinking about, even if this is the first step, if it's going well or having measurable improvements, like expanding, the reach of some of the various policies over time. So 2 questions, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to maybe start with the second one to say that absolutely we would hope that this, we don't want to change it without, kind of a lot of study and input on it. We don't want it to be something that just gets, changed in a back room or anything like that. But yes, absolutely, we want it to be a living document. If something is not working, we want to change it to work better. Something's working really well, maybe we should expand it. Definitely the hope is that we can, this is kind of our first step into these, and we think it's a really good step, but there may be improvements to be made still. And for the first question on kind of the SS4A and whether that accomplishes the intent of the resolution, I think I'm going to pass to Director Seabour.
Yeah, I wish Mr. Robling was here, but I recall in past conversations with him that it was his understanding and his interpretation that by way of the SS4A being a part of the transportation plan, which is part of the comprehensive plan, that was fulfilling that component of the council resolution.
Thank you.
Mr.
Binder. I was going to make offer a more general question, but I think, or a more specific question, but I think to actually generalize it a little bit and also taking into consideration what Mr. Alexander commented about earlier, it does seem like we've loaded this up with a lot of requirements and a lot of specific qualifications that have to be met. 100 turning vehicles, and pedestrians cross at least once every 15 minutes, and this would only be between 7 and 11 p.m. and so on. And I worry that, by the time we apply all of these requirements, that we're not going to be left with very many intersections that actually qualify. So I guess my question would be, how many, based on these requirements, and I realize you have to collect some more data as part of this, but what is your sort of just intuition of how many intersections this would end up actually applying to as written? Because I wonder if there might be a lot of cases where this kind of policy for LPI would be very beneficial from a safety perspective, but might not end up fitting one or more of these requirements.
Yeah. So. Very understandable question. So I think first to note, we do have most, if not all of the data that we need to kind of make those decisions based on, those different thresholds you've seen. As part of our signal retiming project, they've collected turning movement counts, including pedestrian data at all of the traffic signals around the city. And so we are deep into that. We have gotten a look at, where would this apply and not apply. That is part of how these thresholds were determined, frankly, is saying, well, okay, but we made this threshold, but it wouldn't even trigger implementing this on college. That clearly doesn't, there's been a bit of back and forth on that. I will say that on our coordinated signal corridor, so where we have kind of a dense a density of signals that are timed together. Think College and Walnut, West 3rd Street, East 3rd Street, Rogers. that type of central corridor, the majority of those, if not all of those, are ticking all of those boxes. They're showing up as leading pedestrian interval, pedestrian recall, and rest and walk. Like there's a whole list of corridors that are just checking all three of those boxes. Not every single one, and again, we're still in some discussions. And then the more isolated intersections, I mentioned earlier, North Walnut at Old 37, that type of intersection is not, that's the type of intersection that's not checking any of these boxes. And that's not a specific answer to you as to, exactly how many or anything like that, but I will say it is looking like the majority of intersections would fall under this.
Okay,
and I'm sorry, one more point. You had asked about, kind of having all of the different criteria that you need to meet in order to do these things. Another thing we've talked about internally is that it's kind of helpful for us to have that kind of criteria. We implement this and we get complaints because, somebody actually thinks we're prioritizing pedestrians too much. And we say, well, you know what, it met this criteria and this criteria and this criteria, and our policy says to implement it, and that's what we did. We followed the policy. So having those kind of concrete things can be really beneficial.
Okay, thanks. And I guess just to clarify, I wasn't suggesting that there shouldn't be any requirements. I just was wondering kind of what the process was for developing this, and it sounds like you're already working from a fair bit of data. One last point. I think in terms of applying only between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., again, echoing kind of what Mr. Alexander said earlier, I think there may be cases, especially downtown, where applying LPI past 11 p.m. might be a good idea in some areas, and I think you understand, like late night,
Yeah.
late night pedestrian traffic and so on.
I'd just say I agree, and I think that's something that we'll follow up with our consultant and see if we can make some adjustments.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stossberg.
Do you have enough of these details in a GIS system that you're able to visualize what these look like for each of these?
We don't at the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to go back to the more general question. My understanding has always been that changes like this that you're asking for, in the past expected a Title 15 change, vehicles and traffic, that if you wanted to get this policy, it had to change in city code. Now, I know that for a long time it's been a stated goal of both engineering and planning and transportation to not have to go do what I used to abhor as a council member, the omnibus Title 15 ordinance where there are 67 changes to city code. But in order to avoid that, there needs to be some different mechanism. In other words, an abstracted document where you take all those, the listing of every stop sign in town or the listing of every traffic location, and you put it into a document that has a slightly lower standard for change. And I think that moment is on us. I think that staff created this commission for precisely that purpose, to have a level of review that is specializing in transportation but doesn't require going to city council every time you want to change a stop sign. And what I see here in this proposal is a set of details that would be perfectly at home in a document if it existed, but it doesn't exist yet. Is it correct to say that that's sort of your intention here, that these are examples of changes that you want to be able to say are city policy, and that these are the guidelines that you use whenever evaluating an intersection, and that doesn't require an ordinance change? Is that a correct assumption?
I think that's correct. I'm going to restate some of it back to you. So first, Title 15 city code in general does not currently dictate any of our signal timing parameters. That's a decision at the discretion of the city engineer. Today we could, implement a leading pedestrian interval. It doesn't require a code update, as you were saying.
But you're bringing it to us now because you want to change the way you do that business.
Right, so what we would like to have is a more formal policy, a written policy, a document, as you're saying, that says, here's how this decision is made, to bring a bit of transparency to that, to make it objective, to hold us accountable, to give us something to defend it with, and say, here's our policy, here's how we made this decision, and to have that be a written, available document that is not codified, but yes, I think this is clearly the relevant body to help us finalize that document.
Okay, that answers my question for now. I'll have some final comment. Any further questions before we go to debate? Any questions? Mr. Kopic? Close to the mic, please.
In the council resolution, it says this is to be included in the comprehensive plan and the transportation plan. What is in the transportation plan?
What is in the transportation plan
just
related
briefly,
to?
I mean, is there, what's it include? I don't know that I've ever seen it, but is it mostly just the 5-year plan, a 10-year plan for road improvements, or is there more detail like this in it?
So the transportation plan is very sparse related to signal timing. There's virtually nothing in there. It is more of a long-range planning document about how we would like our streets to be designed. So it lists different street typologies and gives cross-sections for different locations and future right-of-way for a street. Developers look at it if they're creating new streets and say, okay, I need this right-of-way and I need to include a sidewalk of this width, and here's what it will look like if I do parking. It includes kind of our big picture transportation-related goals and priorities in there. Does that start to answer?
Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to know. If this would fit in there with your design parameters, is somebody, I think the chairman asked about where it would live at. This would be, is that a place where it's going to live at?
I think that's an interesting question. Whether it's the next transportation plan update or whether it would require an amendment, I don't know whether we would formally insert it in there. There's probably a lot of other policies and design decisions we make that aren't to that level of detail within a long-range planning document. So I don't immediately know if we would formally include it, but I think we would want to at least be supporting the goals that are outlined in that document.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any final questions before we go to debate? Is there any comment on TCR 2606? On my right. Mr. Flaherty.
Sure. I'm supportive of the overall direction. Think appreciate the progress in this. It's been a long time coming. I know you all know. There are new staff hires and folks able to help support. I think I'm overall supportive of the findings and willing to move forward and support it. Just the hesitation would be around it not being kind of fully finalized. We brought up some topics. Staff even brought some topics that are distinct from the policy as outlined in our packet that they're still kind of engaged in back and forth with our consultant on. So that's my biggest hesitation there. Also, to just build on the last question and comment from Mr. Kopic, I think the Safe Streets for All action plan, which is incorporated by reference as part of the transportation plan and therefore part of the comprehensive plan, it does reference these policies as tactics, essentially, to try to improve safety outcomes. And so I think that points to it well enough. I'm very glad you all are developing this as an administrative policy that you all can point to and iterate on. If we were to update, if we were to update a planning document that were to refer to this, I think Safe Streets for All would probably be it, and it might just be, instead of this is a recommended tactic, it's like, now we've actually implemented it, right? And you can reference a particular policy, whatever its title may be. And I think that was my only hesitation when in Mr. Roebling sharing previously that satisfied the city council's resolution, was what's in SS4A, like this is an option of like tactics we could apply. I wasn't sure it was strong enough, but this largely obviates that concern. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? On my right? On my left? Okay, I do have one thing to say. So Nothing happens in the city unless it's called for by code. Okay, so if it's not in city code, then the city can't think about it. Now, when it comes to the city council, for example, they have their rules in code. Any rules for the conduct of a meeting that's not in city code, they have a clause saying, when in doubt, if city code is silent, we refer to Robert's rules. Okay, so there is an external document that covers situations that we didn't think of to put in city code. I think we're at the same situation when it comes to transportation. We have planning documents, Mr. Kopic hit on it. We have a transportation plan. It says generally how we should do business, but a transportation plan is not actual, let's call it code. It's not actual policy. Comes now this resolution. It is the first example of policy that the staff wants to formalize, but they're not bringing it to us as a resolution that calls for an ordinance to change city code to make these policies. We figured that's too strict, and that in general, staff has struggled to manage changing like I said before, every stop sign, every transportation change has to be in city code right now. The problem is there is no document yet to abstract all those details out to. This resolution has some details about pedestrian intervals. We need, let's call it a policy manual, okay? The ordinance that was passed, actually the resolution passed by City Council in 2023 had two main parts in its active section. Establish a citywide policy to provide the use of leading pedestrian intervals. Establish a citywide policy to prioritize pedestrian recall, okay? So there's the phrase, we need to establish a citywide policy document. Call it a manual, call it a document, call it what you will. It doesn't yet exist. It's exactly the kind of place where this stuff should live. But it could be the basis of all future changes that staff might like to abstract out of city code because it's too detailed for city code, doesn't need to live there. Staff should be able to change stop signs without so much trouble, okay? However, I think that this resolution preceded the existence of this body. There was no clear way to manage such a policy document. And staff made an effort to create this body so as to have some method of review that wasn't as formal as City Council. I hope I'm summarizing what I think has been staff's intent all along. But I believe that we need to have a resolution of the Transportation Commission to create that document that includes an ordinance to go to City Council saying, when City Code is silent on a transportation issue, this citywide transportation policy document is our official policy. It's the law. Okay, so that's what I see here. I don't have a problem with the details here. This fulfills the goal of City Council Resolution 2317. But you can see that we're going to keep having this problem until we create that document, which I believe is a document that should have effectively the force of law by being incorporated into city code like Robert's Rules is, but that it be reviewed by this body so that not every change you want to make to a stop sign has to go all the way to City Council. I hope that that makes sense to everybody. That's certainly the goal that I think we should shoot for. And I think it would also it would fulfill the goals that staff had by creating this body. It would give us, I think it's the missing piece, the mechanism we need, that's going to be the document that we're reviewing on the regular. When we approve a resolution, we can literally change that document from this body. So at any rate, I do support the parameters proposed by staff, but I think that this conversation has made me realize we need that greater mechanism for future considerations. Any other debate on this resolution? Seeing none, we're going to go to a roll call vote on TCR 2606.
I just want to clarify if there was a motion.
Oh, we do need to make a motion, Mr. Strasburg.
I move that the Transportation Commission adopt the proposed findings and approve the policy regarding pedestrian protection measures at signalized intersections.
Does it need a second? Second. Motion and a second. Will clerk please call the roll?
Volin,
Yes.
Drummy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Sukaruko.
Yes.
I'm getting there. Strasburg,
Yes.
Kopic,
Yes.
Connell,
Yes.
Binder.
Yes.
Is that everyone?
I believe so. Did everybody? Drummy? I did. Yeah, okay.
Okay, that passes 8-0. Let's move on now. Thank you. Let's move on now to TCR 2604 to approve a proposed Title 20 amendment fee in lieu of required transportation infrastructure. Who is here to present? Hello.
Hi, Jackie Scanlon, Planning and Transportation Assistant Director, presenting for Mr. Roebling. So the department is looking at an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance as part of our annual UDO update, this time to remove the determinate sidewalk variance process and establish a payment in lieu option for required paths, sidewalks, and trails that are required via the UDO and transportation plan. So the determinate sidewalk variance process was changed a number of years ago so that it didn't have its own findings, and it just became one of our regular development standards variances with the regular 3 findings for all development standards variances. But there is still guiding language in the code for this particular type of variance that the Board of Zoning Appeals or hearing officer can review when they come forward. What we are proposing is that we remove that guidance from the Unified Development Ordinance and instead include an option, as you saw in your packet, that if someone, for a reason of the 3 reasons listed in the packet, cannot immediately build the required pedestrian facility, that they could make a payment in lieu of building that. So the way the determinate sidewalk variance process works now, for example, if someone's building a new single-family home and there's adjacent sidewalk or they're on a classified road, they have to build sidewalk along the right-of-way. They can request a variance to not do that, and the Board of Zoning Appeals can issue the variance for them, and then they record a zoning commitment indicating that they acknowledge that they have a determinate sidewalk variance approval, and that at such time that the city wants to expand the sidewalk in front of their property, they will be financially responsible. We don't actually call them in. We have a lot of them, and in the 10 years I've been here, we've never called one in. So we are looking at an option that could potentially provide more benefit to the community as well as be clearer for the petitioner, not something that will run with their title. So what we are proposing, what the department is proposing, I believe starts in your packet on page
46.
46. So it's an additional section related to payment in lieu of pedestrian and bicycle circulation construction under the pedestrian and bicycle circulation section of the UDO. And the idea, as I mentioned before, is that if you have a pedestrian facility that is a pedestrian or bicycle facility that is supposed to be being built in front of your property, and you are doing some sort of development that would trigger the installation or update of that facility, and for one of the 3 reasons under evaluation criteria, the department determines that it's not feasible at this time, then you could request a payment in lieu option, and then that petition would come here to this body, and you all would decide whether or not, based on those criteria, that whether or not you felt that they could meet that criteria. So they would basically have the option of building or doing a payment in lieu. And then there is a description of how that fee is calculated, also on page 47. And basically, the fee is not set yet. If this is something that is going to go forward, we will work with the engineering department in order to set that fee based on their annual construction cost estimates. And the payment in lieu of constructing at that time would not be in perpetuity. So were there to be another activity on that site that required via the UDO, the upgrade of those facilities, they would have to do that or address the payment in lieu option again. So we are recommending, actually, I don't know how the recommendation, hold on. Thank you. I just couldn't remember if you're the final. I think we're asking you to adopt the proposed findings and forward to the Plan Commission and Common Council this UDO update with a positive recommendation. And if you do, then the Planning and Transportation staff will take this to the Plan Commission, present there as well, and then they will also make a recommendation to Common Council, who makes the final decision on updates to the UDO, which is Title 20 of the Bloomington Municipal Code. So I can answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there questions on TCR 2604? To my right, we'll start with Mr. Connell.
Yeah, I was just curious about the fee calculation. Is it a standard or is it vary by project? Is it specific to each variance?
That's a great question. I believe that annually it would be based on hold on, let's see here. The annual construction cost calculation that engineering does, that they use for their projects, it would be based on that amount, so it would be updated annually, but not project by project.
Thank you.
Mr. Flaherty.
Thanks. So the kind of policy intent here in part is to, where we don't think it makes sense, because there's no surrounding sidewalks perhaps, we can, instead of having them build one there, get the money and use it for a different sidewalk gap that is maybe more needed at this time. Is that right?
Yes, thank you. So the fee would go into the Alternative Transportation Fund, which is programmed, I believe, by us, but obviously ultimately approved by council. And so the idea would be that the transportation plan acknowledges that we just have a lot of gaps. And so the idea would be to address that concern in the transportation plan in this way, instead of requiring facilities that maybe don't make sense at this time.
Got it. So yeah, you anticipated my follow-up, which was how do we make sure the money actually gets earmarked and spent on sidewalks? And I was anticipating the alternative transportation fund might be an avenue for that. Will that be in code or otherwise in the fee schedule? Like, how do we make sure, is it there and I just missed it?
I'm not sure if it's there, but we could definitely include it in the, hold on, let me go page down, sorry. I didn't print this out.
It actually is in there, yeah.
Okay,
I missed that.
perfect.
Yep. Yep. That sounds good. My only other hesitancy there, I think, is that if, as you all know, we are chronically underfunded for sidewalk improvements and other related safety improvements. If the idea is we're foregoing a sidewalk here because we want to put another sidewalk in somewhere else, maybe even more narrowly prescribing that. I don't know, because the Alternative Transportation Fund, while it is limited in its purpose, there's some breadth there. So that's more of a comment than a question. But
yeah,
do you have thoughts about whether it should be sidewalk specific versus any use?
Well, I think you can also do it. So if the transportation calls for you to build a multi-use path or, for example, part of a bicycle connection, you can do the payment in lieu for that as well, I believe. So, yes, there may be a policy question about how are we earmarking each of those things when we're doing reporting to the council during budget time hopefully for what those items will be used for. That's a good question.
Thank you. Mr. Kopic. Oh, okay. Anybody else? Mr. Drumming?
Did you say that if one homeowner does the payment in lieu for that property and then the homeowner in the home changes ownership and they needed to come back and do something different, so basically the same home could pay for pay into the program more than once?
No, because the only thing on a home that requires new sidewalk is a new home. So if they sold the property, in 30 years, someone wanted to tear it down and build something else, then that would re-trigger. And even now, it would re-trigger if the transportation plan would obviously have changed in that amount of time, and it no longer matched, they would have to update that anyway.
Mr. Strasburg.
What's the expected volume of these requests per year?
It's a great question. I would say 5-ish. We don't get very many of them because in about 2018 we changed the requirements for when the sidewalks were required to kind of address the sidewalk to nowhere situation. So for single-family houses, I would say 5, but it does seem that this is also, it's for commercial and or some subdivision situations, so there would probably be more of those actually. But obviously our priority is to get the facility that's in the transportation plan, so a payment in lieu would only be considered if the 3 criteria seem to make sense there.
And how do we determine whether it's a good choice to have it approved directly by the staff or also come to this body? We're still getting on our feet in our first 12 months, and we are the merger of 3 other bodies, which already felt like they were full. So my concern here is partly just about our time management and taking on something which would come to us approximately once every other meeting.
Sure, I would say, the way that it is proposed, the idea would be that you all would evaluate and make that decision. If you would feel comfortable letting staff do that, I'm sure that you could make that amendment and or make that recommendation to Plan Commission to have that conversation more there. Okay. Again, we will still be gearing people toward building the facility. And I don't think it'll be very likely. Some people I'm sure will, but it is not very likely the developer would come here and ask without support from staff. That isn't super common with this type of request. But yeah, it's something to consider for you all. I understand the question.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Mr. Binder.
Would you say that the part of the problem that this is trying to solve is that currently there are exemptions to sidewalk construction being granted by the city, but then there's no sidewalk constructed for that project in question, and of course then there's no sidewalk constructed somewhere else, and that this is an attempt to capture some revenue for sidewalks to at least be built somewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
Further questions? Let's go to the public. If there's a member of the public who would like to address TCR 2604, please come to the podium, sign in and state your name. You'll have 3 minutes. Same is true for anyone attending online. If you'd like to speak to it and you're attending online, please use the raise hand function in Zoom and we will call on you. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to TCR 2604? I don't see anybody moving in the room. Is there anybody online who has raised their hand?
No.
Last call for public comment on TCR 2604. Seeing none, we come back to the commission for a second round of questions, if any. On my right, any questions? On my left? Seeing none, we go to debate. Is there anyone who would like to comment on TCR 2604? On my right? On my left? Okay, I'll just say one thing. This resolution does specifically call for code change. It presents the specific language that would go into code. It just sort of underscores my previous concern about where would this very obviously detailed language go if it's not going into code. But I appreciate that this is very clearly asking us to recommend a change to city code. Final call for debate on TCR 2604. Seeing none, we need a motion.
Before approving this, I move to amend it to strike the need for our approval and make the department's determination final.
Well, we need to discuss that all the way
Okay.
through. Do you have a second?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, well, can you please explain your motion?
As I mentioned, my concern is our time management. It sounds, I expect that we'd end up approving these, following their recommendation, and it is something we could come back and revisit, try this out for a year, and then if it feels like there's need for our oversight, then we can change it to bring it to ourselves later. I do have this concern of having merged these three commissions, which had full agendas. I feel like we have challenges already with our current load, and so I'm hesitant to add more to our load in our first year. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Strasburg's motion to amend? Can you please restate what your,
Okay. The language, the proposal is to approve the findings with the amendment. They include a step that says after the department has made the determination, it would come here for an additional approval, would be to strike and amend that language simply for the department's determination of the findings.
can I ask what page that
Yes.
you're,
47, Section D.
If I can make a suggestion under D, review and decision, all requests for payments in lieu of the construction of paths, sidewalks, and trails shall be determined by the City of Bloomington Planning and Transportation and Engineering Departments and evaluated based on the criteria set forth in this section, as opposed to what it says now.
On mine, it's 39.
I am confused. All right, 39.
The last paragraph.
So,
Mr. Binder,
if I
yeah.
may, so Mark, I think the paragraph that you're looking at is basically the staff's summary of the proposed change. But if
Okay.
you look at page 47, that is in the red text, that is the actual proposed change to the text of ordinance. And so that's what Ms. Scanlon had just referred to, Section D, review and decision.
And so my question to you is, are you suggesting that we strike Section D of the proposed new Section 11 that's being proposed by staff?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
This is a material amendment to the policy. It needs discussion. Mr. Binder.
Okay, just to maybe offer one more suggestion. Rather than strike Section D, review and decision altogether, I would suggest, and I believe that staff, I'm seeing Jackie nodding her head, also would suggest that rather than striking that section altogether, that we simply replace City of Bloomington Transportation Commission with City of Bloomington Planning and Transportation and Engineering staff, or Planning, Transportation, and Engineering Departments staff.
Sure, and I would suggest striking the word heard and changing it to determined. So shall be determined by City of Bloomington Planning and Transportation and Engineering Departments.
Right. So back to you, Commissioner Strasburg, if you want to restate your proposed amendment.
Yes, I agree. So the wording would be, all requests for payment in lieu of constructions of paths, sidewalks, and trails shall be determined by the City of Bloomington Transportation Department and evaluated based on the criteria set forth in this section.
Okay. There's a motion and a second as restated by Mr. Strasburg. Are there any questions for Mr. Strasburg's amendment? On my left? Let's hold up on comments. Let's just do questions here. Questions? Okay. Is there any public comment on this amendment? If you are in the room, please come to the podium. If you are online, please raise your hand in Zoom, and we will call on you. Last call for public comment on the amendment to TCR 2604 from Mr. Strasburg. Come back to the council, or sorry, the commission for questions if they're old habits. Is there any debate? Mr. Drumming?
Yes, thank you. A rhetorical question maybe, and my concern with the amendment as proposed by Mr. Strasburg is that if you're a member of the public and you feel like maybe you don't have a great relationship with the staff, they're kind of the judge and jury, and there's nowhere else to go if it's drafted as amended. The other issue, the rhetorical question component, is does the staff want that responsibility? Or would they rather, there are times I have to make decisions in my professional life that I'd rather someone else have to make that decision, but I'm the one that has to make it. And obviously, as Ms. Scanlon pointed out, this I think she suggested that generally speaking, most people would probably not be bringing this type of request to us without a staff recommendation. So I think that would probably limit how much time we spend on these in our meetings. So those would be my concerns about the proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right, Mr. Flaherty.
Sorry, it's actually a question.
Go ahead. All right. It's all right.
The amendment, the substance of it doesn't concern me too much. I think there's a lot that we leave to staff, and I know there's there's some flexibility sometimes in what gets elevated to Plan Commission for review or not, versus like hearing officer kind of stuff. Payment in lieu of for affordable housing incentives. Like that doesn't come to the city council, or well, certainly not city council, obviously. But does that go through like a similar process for like a commission approval, or is that more just administered according to a set of guidelines? The payment in lieu for affordable
it's
housing?
kind of, but it's more administered based on a set of guidelines. So it can be on a petition that does not go to a public hearing.
Okay, that's it. Thanks. I guess to then close by way of comment, I'm comfortable with the amendment and supporting it. I'm, as Mr. Strasburg noted, we could always be changed in the future if it proves to be problematic in some way, but I don't think it will be. I'm more concerned about making sure the money actually gets spent on sidewalks, if that's the intent, or whatever its one-to-one substitution is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate on this issue? I'll take my chance here. This is why I agree with Mr. Drumming. I think I would reverse what Mr. Flaherty says and say we can always change it later to just be heard by staff, but I think it's fine as it is. I think that this is the entire reason why this commission was set up, was to create some mechanism for public review of the work of planning and transportation and engineering. And that as we heard, it doesn't happen very often. While we do have plenty on our agenda, it's because it's a brand new commission that's combining three commissions. I think that the amendment is premature, and I don't support it. I think that we should just leave it as it is, approve this language, let it pass city code, into city code, and then if we need to change it later, we can do it. But I don't support the amendment. Are there any further debate on this amendment? To my left. Here's your chance to speak again if you want. To my right. Seeing none, let's have a vote on the amendment as stated by Mr. Strasburg. Please call the roll.
Drumming.
No.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Sukaruchko.
Getting better? Yes.
Thank you. Strasburg.
Yes.
Kopic.
No.
Connell.
Yes.
Binder.
Yes.
Volin.
No.
All right. That's 2-6.
I think there were 3 noes and 5 yeses.
Yeah, 5-3.
Oh, 5-3. Oh, sorry, you were correct, 5-3.
Okay, the amendment is adopted 5-3. We now bring TCR 2604 as amended back to the commission. Is there a motion? What's that? Oh, I'm looking for the wording. We need a motion on what to do with TCR 2604 as amended.
Propose adopting the motion, or the resolution as amended.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Can we please have a roll call vote on TCR 2604 as amended?
Flaherty.
Yes.
Sukor Kujo.
Yes.
Strasburg.
Yes.
Kopic.
No.
Connell.
Yes.
Binder.
Yes.
Volin.
No.
Drummy.
No.
That passes 5-3.
5-3.
So, and that is adopted. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Scanlon. Let's move now to TCP 2602, review in progress transportation projects and approve proposed changes to Bloomington Municipal Code. Mr. Copper.
Good evening again, Neil Copper, Engineering Department. This next presentation is frankly a little bit awkward. We're bringing forward a whole bunch of projects all lumped into one, and they're all projects that started generally a long time ago, often many years ago, before this Transportation Commission even existed or was a thing. So we couldn't bring them to you early like we would want to and have you weigh in on the concept design and have meaningful input on it. At the same time, we don't want to not bring them to you, and then they're going to construction, and you're like, what are you doing? So where we've landed, and feel free to give input, is we want to at least put them in front of you, let you know that they're there, make sure that you're aware, and kind of acknowledging that most of these are already fully designed. Some of them are already awarded to a contractor and scheduled for construction. I'm going to try to go very rapidly through these because, as you have noted, you have a lot of demands on your time already, so I'm going to go pretty quick. If you have questions about them, if you want to pull any of these and say, we would like these to be a future item at a future commission, I could talk about any of these projects for an entire meeting, and instead I'm going to try to aim for like 20 seconds or something. So,
Okay, before you go on then, let's just to be clear, there are, I'd say 9, 10 items here, and typically we would get each of these as a separate item, but because these were all in process, we're getting sort of the quick and dirty post hoc review.
I think that's accurate. And
Okay.
part of the idea is if you do want to dive into any of these, we can do that at a future meeting, 100%.
Okay. And how far in advance typically should we expect these to come to us before, like in a typical process?
I think it will vary a little bit. I think we really want to bring these to you when they're still at a concept, when they're still an idea, and we're not so far along where we have to say, well, that's a great idea, but we can't really do that.
Okay, so if there's any member of the commission who feels like they'd like to have a more detailed presentation of one or more of these, that they should speak up after you've presented them all.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so just so everybody knows what we're doing here, okay? Please begin.
So the first project to talk about is our High Street intersection improvements and multi-use path. I think we'll get the images back here in a second. This is multi-use path on the east side of High Street between Arden and Hunter. South of there, we have existing multi-use path built a few years ago. It also includes 2 traffic signal replacements of existing old traffic signals. It includes stormwater infrastructure installation. That's one of the things we heard about a lot during our public input meetings. It includes a number of curb ramp and crosswalk improvements. We're looking at utility relocations this year and construction following most likely in 2027. The next project is West Kirkwood, an improvements project. There's a few different pieces of this project. The first piece is replacing the traffic signal at the intersection of Kirkwood and Rogers. It's very old equipment. The detection isn't working. We get a lot of complaints about it. Another piece is asphalt resurfacing, just general street maintenance on Kirkwood between Pine and Rogers. We're including a number of different crosswalk improvements along with the project. A piece I want to highlight is access management. So in the southwest corner of the intersection at Kirkwood and Rogers, which you kind of see here on the screen, there's a gas station. There's a pattern of crashes from people pulling out of the driveway on Kirkwood. Maybe the rightmost eastbound lane stops and lets them through, and then the other lane has a vehicle that's coming through and doesn't see them, and you have a right angle crash. It happens over and over again. So we would basically restrict that to right in and right out at that driveway and the adjacent alley. And so we highlighted that a lot during our public input for this process. And then also this would include a minor parking update. So currently there's some existing on-street parking on the north side of Kirkwood in this block that you can see. With the installation of that median, we'd be removing that parking on the north side, but we identified a spot on the south side where we can actually add back a couple of those parking spaces. So that would be a future 180-day order or Title 15 update. The next project is the intersection of Walnut and Grimes. This is a traffic signal replacement project. Again, the equipment is old and not operating how we would like it to. As long as we're replacing the traffic signal, we also want to update the curb ramps and do any other pedestrian safety improvements we can at the time. At this intersection, we're looking at truck aprons. So in the northwest corner and the southwest corner, the top left and bottom left on your screen, a truck apron kind of controls right turning motor vehicle turn speeds. So a passenger car kind of has a smaller radius as they're going around that corner, but that apron is mountable by, for example, a larger truck that actually needs that space to make the turn. So this is the intersection of two truck routes. We are also evaluating using hardened center lines. Hardened center lines were described earlier in the SS4A presentation. We don't know yet actually if this will be an ideal candidate for it, but I wanted to show it as an option here. The next project is West 2nd Street modernizations and safety improvements. So this includes a two-way protected bike lane on the north side of 2nd Street. It would connect the B line on the east end west to Walker, where there's an existing multi-use path on the north side of the street. There are two traffic signal replacements, again, older signal equipment. One of the changes at those two traffic signals would be turn on red restrictions, and again, that would be a Title 15 update. We're including lots of drainage improvements and also installing accessible curb ramps and bus stops along with that project. Next is Jefferson, a sidewalk project between 8th and 10th. So south of 8th Street, there is existing sidewalk. North of 8th Street, there is no sidewalk on either side of the street. We'd be installing sidewalk on the east side. Next project is 2nd Street curb ramps. So this is coordination with the Public Works resurfacing project, resurfacing on 2nd Street. This is east of the other 2nd Street project that I mentioned. As we're looking at curb ramp replacements, we like to ask, instead of just replacing this curb ramp and making the updates required for accessibility, can we do even more? Can we do something to improve pedestrian safety like a bump out or modifying the corner radii? So here we identified 3 different intersections where bump outs would be feasible and be beneficial. There's an image on the screen there. I believe that's 2nd and Lincoln. You can see there's bump outs kind of within the parking lanes to shorten crossing distances for pedestrians and improve their visibility. Next project, crosswalk on Union Street. This is between 7th and 10th, mid-block between basically a heavily used IU parking lot and a bunch of IU buildings. See a lot of crossings there. The crossing would be a raised crosswalk and also include a bump out on the west side of the street to reduce that crossing distance. And then downtown curb ramps phase 4. This is one of our federally funded projects. We applied through a special call for Highway Safety Improvement Program funding. The map is on the screen of all the different locations where we would be replacing curb ramps in order to make them accessible. Many of these would also include things like bump outs or other improvements. And then next, the Patterson-Grimes resurfacing. So This is a Public Works identified resurfacing project between 3rd Street on the north end and Walnut, kind of to the southeast. As long as we are resurfacing, again, doing curb ramp and crosswalk improvements wherever we can, signs and marking updates. There are some areas where we'll be repairing existing sidewalk. And then I also want to highlight that another nearby resurfacing project we're working on is actually South Rogers Street between Grimes and 3rd Street. And that project will actually come to you for more discussion separately because it is it's relevant for a corridor study that is being started up by the Planning and Transportation Department. So as part of our efforts for resurfacing, we're going to attempt to implement some of the things that are coming from the corridor study. But I want to highlight it here in part because they're not all shown here on the map, but if you think about Patterson and Grimes and Rogers and Kirkwood all kind of form a triangle, and then West 2nd Street cuts through the middle of that triangle, east-west. So just highlighting there is a lot of construction planned for this area, and it'd be a lot of great improvements, but it means we have to be really careful about coordinating those efforts and maintenance of traffic during those efforts. And so just want to acknowledge that is something that we are looking at, and it frankly will be a challenge in this area. I think that was the last one of my real quick summaries, and happy to answer questions if you have them or schedule a future broader discussion.
Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Copper. All right, just to be clear, we are reviewing this update on these projects, and we also need to approve we need to recommend approval of modifications to city code for a couple of these.
Correct. I tried to highlight those couple code updates in there because those will go forward in the future.
Can you just remind us again briefly of the ones that involve code updates?
Yes. So
of the 9 you just showed us.
There's a parking change on the removing parking on the north side of Kirkwood between Rogers and Jackson, and then allowing it on the south side within that same block, and then amending code regarding turn-on red restrictions at 2nd and Rogers and 2nd and Walker.
Okay, so for the second item you presented us and the fourth item you presented us, there are code changes.
I didn't keep track of the order, but I think you're correct.
Just according to the slides in the packet.
Great.
So, yeah, I think so. Okay, let's go to questions from members on TCP 2602. Is there any particular item here that you have a question about? Ms. Sukoruchko. I did it wrong too.
That's right. Just a general question on the timeline of those projects, since you were trying to onboard us with what's happening, like just where you are for those projects.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I should maybe go through them individually. They all have slightly different timelines. Most of them are coming up for construction, I would say this year, or at least starting it in this year. Some of them have utility relocations this year and construction extending into the following year, but the majority of those are going to be this 2026.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Sukoruchko. Anybody else on my right? Questions? On my left, Mr. Drummy.
Very general question, but about the intersection of Walnut and Grimes, which is one of your projects, I've noticed and actually had a case arise from cars cutting through what used to be the Family Video parking lot to avoid waiting for the light. Is there anything from an engineering standpoint, I'm not suggesting that be added, but is there any way to control when traffic gets off the public road, gets on a private road and back on the public road from an engineering standpoint?
The main way we can control that is by closing a driveway. And of course, that would happen in consultation with the owner. At that particular parcel, I believe along Grimes, they have 2 separate driveways. And the driveway closest to the intersection of Peters, they park vehicles through it. Typically, it's not actually used as a driveway. In our discussions with them, we will be proposing closing that driveway closest to the intersection. I'll say many property owners wouldn't desire for one of their driveways to be closed, but that would be our main solution.
Further questions on my left? I've got one to follow up on Mr. Drummy. I mean, couldn't it be a temporary closure until something new goes in there?
I mean, that's something that we can discuss with the owner.
Okay, no, I just was curious. I had one question about the Union Street crosstalk between 7th and 10th. It appears that you're putting the crossing around 8th Street. I've also seen many people crossing Union Street at all angles between that point and 10th Street, as I think there's a lot of foot traffic between Eigenman and the Union Street dorms. How did you choose this particular spot for the crossing?
Yeah. I'm going to maybe point at Hank Duncan to see if he knows the history on how that particular spot was chosen for crossing.
Sure, great question. So as you mentioned, there's a lot of uncontrolled pedestrian crossings at Union between 7th and 10th Street. And so honestly, you could put a crosswalk anywhere in that area and there would be a major benefit. The reason why we chose it around that 8th Street intersection is because, one, there's a parking lot just east of Union Street there with hundreds of vehicles where students park their cars, and so you have a large amount of students traveling from there onto the Union Street apartments or dorms further west of there. Also, one of the main multi-use paths or sidewalks, I don't know what you call them, but one of the main paths going east-westbound through that apartment complex is right by that crosswalk. I believe it's either about maybe 20 feet north or 20 feet south of where that crosswalk's going to go. I forget the exact location, but you are correct that there will still be pedestrians crossing between that 8th Street intersection and that 10th Street intersection, but our hope is that this crosswalk, especially because it's a raised crosswalk, it will help funnel folks to a safe and prioritized location so we see less of that uncontrolled crossing.
Well, I mean, I don't dispute the method you're using. I think that this will funnel people to a location. The question is which location. And one reason why I'm thinking about this is because I think that there's a whole lot less foot traffic south of 8th Street, that most of the traffic is going north to the Union Street dorms, to Eigenman, or to the parking lots, but that you're basically putting the crossing at the bottom of this 2-block area of crossings. I just don't see the same volume of foot traffic between 7th and 8th as between the other two north, and that was my concern. I'm not sure how strong a concern it is.
Sure.
It's just been my impression over the years of driving past it.
I'm not sure if I completely agree with the amount of foot traffic on either side of the section that we're talking about, but I will say, especially for the foot traffic to the north of this crosswalk in crossing near Eigenman or near the north section of the Union Street apartments, they do have a signalized intersection at the 10th and Union intersection.
Right.
And so what we assume and what a lot of students do is they essentially go up to 10th Street and cross at that controlled intersection. Because
when I look at the dot here, it looks like you've placed it exactly halfway between 7th and 10th, and not actually at 8th, but you're saying that the crossing would actually be closer, it'll be farther south of this dot, closer to 8th Street, is that right?
So the crossing is not in line with 8th Street perfectly. It's actually north of that.
Okay.
It is pretty equidistant between the two.
Okay, that I just wanted to make sure, because I thought I heard 8th Street, and if you're putting it between 8th and 9th, that's what I was hoping for. So that answers my question. Thank you. Any further questions? On my right? On my left? Let's go to the public now for comment on TCP 2602. If there's a member of the public who'd like to speak to this, please come to the podium, sign in. You'll have 3 minutes. If you'd like to speak and you're online, please use the raise hand function in Zoom and we will call on you. Any comments on TCP 2602? Last call for comments. I see no movement in the room. Anybody online? We'll come back to the commission now for second round of questions. On my right, on my left. Mr. Stassberg.
A comment, just a personal thank you for the walnut and grime My daughter was in a serious traffic accident into there when someone ran a red light at a high rate of speed and cut in front of her. And I think these hardened center lines will slow people down and narrow the effective turning radius and make that less likely or less severe. So I appreciate what you're doing there.
Thank you. Any other, now that we've gone straight to discussion, any other comments on TCP 2602? Mr. Flaherty.
Just very briefly, thank you for bringing this to us and sharing it seen and aggregated is very exciting, and appreciate all the work you're doing. So just thank you. That's all.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we need a motion on TCP 2602. We're approving, we're recommending approval of, I forget what the, what are our options,
I
Madam
think
Clerk?
the staff recommendation is that the commission would adopt the proposed findings that are written in the report. And then also forwarding that resolution for Title 15 amendments to council with a positive recommendation.
Move to adopt the proposed findings and forward the edits to Title 15 to council with a positive recommendation.
Need a second? We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion for TCP 2602?
Yes.
Strasburg?
Yes.
Yes.
Connell?
Yes.
Binder?
Yes.
Bolin?
Yes.
Drummy?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you very much. TCP 2602 passes 8-0. Let's move now to TCP 2603 to approve a design concept for North Dunn Street's multi-use path. Here to present, I believe, is Mr. Copper.
Yes. So this topic is slightly less awkward because we're bringing it to you early. The project is not we're not early concept, but we're early enough that you can have certainly meaningful input on it, so we want to bring it to you. We hope this is more typical of bringing projects forward to you in the future. So this is a project that has, it's listed in the city's transportation plan as a priority project. It was prioritized for federal funding through the Metropolitan Planning Organization. It would install a multi-use path on the east side of Dunn Street from the bypass north to Clover Lane. Clover Lane is the southernmost entrance into the Blue Ridge neighborhood, so you would at least kind of get that access. The general idea is kind of connecting town, if you're walking or biking, connecting you from campus and town up into the Matlock Heights neighborhood, also up into the Blue Ridge neighborhood, and also connecting to the Griffey Lake Nature Preserve and the trail system there. The project would also include some relatively minor stormwater infrastructure, and then things like curb ramps and improved crosswalks along the street. We have, as I said, we've already been awarded federal funding for this project. We've already had an initial public meeting and gathered input from residents in the area. We've also been invited to a Matlock Heights Neighborhood Association and given an update there. And then I do also want to note that there is, at least in concept, a future phase that would continue this from Clover Lane up to the north, connecting to existing path system further north on Dunn Street. In the next slide, I showed, existing conditions on Dunn Street. There's really nothing on either side of the street if you're trying to walk or bike in the area. You can, try to walk in the ditch or, push through the vegetation. The proposal is for again, a multi-use path on the east side of the street. It would generally be a 10-foot wide path separated from the street by approximately a 6-foot grass plot. If we're able to put trees into it, we will, but we need to get into evaluation of underground utilities and things like that. The next slide show you kind of conceptually the north end of that project. So as you get to Clover Lane, the Blue Ridge neighborhood is on the west side of the street. Our multi-use path is on the east side of the street. So we're proposing an improved crosswalk. We're showing this conceptually as a raised crosswalk to also help with motor vehicle speeds in the area. And then you can also see kind of a modest trailhead here where the path would also connect into the soft surface trails that are existing for Griffey Lake. In the next slide, so one of the primary comments we heard from the public was complaints about motor vehicle speeds on Dunn Street and some concern. I think there was general agreement that the multi-use path made the most sense on the east side of Dunn Street, but there was some concern that most of the residents are living on the west side of Dunn Street. So they're going to have to actually cross Dunn Street in order to use that multi-use path, so a desire for improved crosswalks in order to get to it. So showing here, there's, you've kind of got an existing traffic signal at the bypass. There's 2 existing all-way stops where vehicles are at least presumably coming to a stop, if not at least slowing down. And then at the north end of the project, which is to the right on the screen here, the proposed crosswalk, raised crosswalk that I showed at Clover Lane. So there are also a couple other uncontrolled intersections within there. So at Vernon and at Glendora, there is no stop sign or anything there. So those are additional locations where we are conceptually proposing adding additional raised crosswalk at that location, which would facilitate people in the neighborhood crossing over to the multi-use path and also provide, hopefully result in some reduced speeding in the area where you're kind of in between stop signs. Just in general on this, as I noted, we're still relatively early. We have survey, we're working into final design. We'll be looking at construction most likely in 2028, but federal funded projects typically have very long timelines because there's a lot of requirements for them. We're in our environmental process right now. But again, this is early enough. We're very much interested in your input and thoughts on the project.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions for Mr. Copper or staff on TCP 2603? Mr. Binder.
I assume the reason the east side of the street was chosen is because there are fewer driveways and other intersections, and that the design guidelines for multi-use paths say that generally they are safer with fewer intersections and fewer drive cuts and so forth. Is that correct?
That was definitely a factor. I'll say another factor is the homes on the west side of the street are much closer to the street, as opposed to the homes on the east side of the street. There are fewer of them, and they tend to be set pretty far back from the street. So just physically having the space was another factor.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions on my right? On my left? I have one question. Would you propose raised crosswalks at the 2 existing all-way stops?
We're not currently proposing that. When you have an all-way stop where vehicles should be coming to a full stop at an all-way stop, and understanding that they may not be, they may be slowing down and rolling through it, but still the speed reduction you see from a stop sign tends to be much greater than the speed reduction you would see from a raised crosswalk.
Okay, just curious. Any other questions? Let's go to the public now for discussion, for comment on TCP 2603. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to it in chambers? If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand function, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Last call for comment on TCP 2603. Online, anybody? In the room? Let's come back to the commission for second round of questions or comment. On my left? On my right? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that the Transportation Commission adopt the proposed findings and approve the North Dunn Street multi-use path project concept.
Need a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll on TCP 2603?
Stossberg,
Yes.
Kopic,
Yes.
Connell,
Yes.
Binder,
Yes.
Volin,
Yes.
Drummy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Take your time.
Suko-Ruchko. Passes 8-0.
Thank you. TCP 2603 is approved 8-0. Let's move on to our last case of the evening, TCP 2605, to approve a design concept for curb ramps Phase 5. Hank Duncan.
Hello, Hank Duncan, Safe Streets Program Manager. We are talking about the conceptual plan for the downtown curb ramps Phase 5 project to provide a safer experience for pedestrians crossing the East 3rd Street and East Atwater Avenue corridors. Before I get into the report, I do want to emphasize that this is very much a concept in the true sense of the word, where there are no visuals. We are very, very early in this project, and so before we have narrowed down specific locations in terms of feasibility and priority, we wanted to hear from you about this general concept of what we plan to do on the corridors. The Downtown Curb Ramps Phase 5 project aims to improve pedestrian safety and accessibility along the East 3rd Street and Atwater corridors adjacent to the Indiana University campus. The section of 3rd Street between Indiana Avenue and Union Street is identified as highest priority in the Safe Streets for All action plan. The section of Atwater Avenue between Henderson Street and Woodlawn Avenue is identified as medium priority, and the section between Woodlawn and Mitchell Street is identified as high priority. East 3rd Street and East Atwater Avenue through the project area are both identified as general urban in the transportation plan. The Elm Heights and East Side neighborhoods, as well as the Indiana University campus, are located along the project area. This project will construct improved curb ramps and raised crosswalks at multiple uncontrolled intersections and mid-block crossings along these two corridors to promote safer pedestrian crossings and potentially slow motor vehicle traffic. Design and construction is federally funded with a local match. This project utilizes federal funding from the Highway Safety Improvement Program. Project scoping is now complete, and design and right-of-way acquisition, if required, will take place during 2026 and 2027. The project will be bid out for construction in mid-2028, and construction is tentatively planned for 2029, and all schedules are subject to change. City staff have completed preliminary coordination with Indiana University, Bloomington Fire Department, and the Bloomington Police Department. And tonight, staff recommends that the Transportation Commission adopt the proposed findings and approve the Downtown Curb Ramps Phase 5 project concept. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Are there questions for him on TCP 2605? On my right, Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you. How does this factor into or affect, let's say, medium-term thinking about 3rd and Atwater as a corridor for review and potential more significant overhaul called for in the transportation plan? I'm not sure where that's planned, like in the timing. Yes.
Yep. So these two corridors have been the subject of a lot of talks and proposed projects over the years, and these are corridors that before we truly study it or before Bloomington Transit wants to construct any kind of transit improvements along the corridor that are huge overhaul changes, we want to be careful to not construct anything that might be torn up in the short-term or near-term or mid-term future. These crosswalk projects are very much projects that can be aligned with whatever long-term changes happen with the corridor. We're just talking about crosswalk improvements, whether that be speed tables or raised crosswalks or curb ramp improvements, that no matter what the corridor looks like 10 or 20 years from now, these are improvements that will most likely stay intact.
And does that include if the corridor became, both those streets became two-way in the future?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
On my left, Mr. Stossberg.
Yeah, to anticipate feedback you could get from the public about this, 3rd and Atwater are part of our major corridors for moving cars. You mentioned slower speeds. So I have questions about speed and volume. Are we talking about moving from like a speeding average to more of a target, or lower from there? And how does we anticipate this affects like throughput for cars as well as other kinds of vehicles?
Sure. So the speed limits for most, if not all, of these two corridors is 25 miles an hour. And I don't have the speed data in front of me, but I think we all understand and we have the data to support that speeding occurs very, very frequently along these two corridors. And again, these corridors are major crossroads for pedestrians trying to get to class, to get to home, et cetera. And it shows in the Safe Streets for All action plan and that these two corridors are at the high or highest priority corridor in the city. And so with that, slower speeds, these slower speeds down to 25 miles an hour, we don't imagine that they would affect capacity much, if at all. I want to confirm that with engineering, yes. We are not talking about signalizing different intersections or implementing always stops in these corridors to control traffic. We are talking about design changes to make sure that speed is controlled at that speed limit that we've implemented.
Thank you.
Further questions from commissioners on TCP 2605? On my right? On my left? I do have one. I don't, when you say crosswalks, are you talking about just paint and striping, or are you talking about raising?
No, we are very much talking about raised crosswalks. And so
Really?
one reason why we didn't want to bring a visual representation of the locations we're looking at so far is because feasibility is the first concern in what will narrow down locations. We have about 15 locations along the two corridors at either mid-block crossings or intersections where we could potentially implement these raised crosswalks. But because of feasibility concerns, draining, et cetera, before we get into the where would we want to prioritize these locations, we need to focus on where can we prioritize these locations. Yes?
Well, I'm just curious as to, like, how are buses affected by raised crosswalks? I mean, buses are a high priority for this corridor, I'm quite confident. Is there no issue? I mean, I guess they go at a certain deliberate, slow rate. Is there any issue with buses and raised crosswalks? No? Okay, then.
Another variation of the question is like, what's their design speed for the
Thank you,
crosswalks?
yeah, it's a good question.
So the design speed for this corridor is the speed limit at 25 miles an hour.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we go to the public for comment on TCP 2605. Is there a member of the public who would like to speak to this petition? If you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function and let us know what you think. We'll give you 3 minutes. Anyone would like to speak to TCP 2605? Last call. I see no movement in the room. Are there any raised hands in Zoom? Last call. Let's come back to the commission for questions or comment on TCP 2605. To my left. Comment to my right. Seeing none, let's go to a motion.
I move the Transportation Commission adopt the proposed findings and approve the downtown curb ramps Phase 5 project concept.
Need a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll on TCP 2605, the motion as stated?
Kopic.
Yes.
Connell.
Yes.
Binder.
Yes.
Bolin.
Yes.
Drummy.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes. Yes.
Sukaruchko. Yes. Stossberg.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. TCP 2605 is approved 8-0. Let's move now to discussion of topics not on the docket. Are there any topics that commissioners would like to bring up as potential, as a topic of conversation here, perhaps to be a potential case for the commission? On my left. On my right, Mr. Flaherty.
Sorry, I distracted for a moment, but you asked if there's any other items for discussion?
Yeah, we're on the discussion of topics not on the docket.
Yep, I do have one. So I formerly served on a committee of the city councils called the Committee on Council Processes. I'm not serving on that committee this year, but still carrying a request forward from that committee. It has to do with eligibility for serving on boards and commissions. And so one thing that committee did over the last few years was review and implement some and assess recommendations from a consultant report from a number of years back that looked at our boards and commissions. Actually, among other things, consolidating our transportation-related commissions into a single commission was one of those recommendations. Of course, that is now a reality. Something else we've been looking at in the board and commission context is the eligibility requirement with respect to city residency specifically. And the Arts Commission, for example, had made an appeal to us to broaden the eligibility criteria to allow a non-city resident or to, just having that possibility, not for any, we don't want an all non-city resident commission for probably any city commission, but, there are some cases where it might make sense to relax that eligibility criteria for a seat, say. And so, yeah, initially, my thinking and the committee's thinking was that we should take a uniform approach to this, whatever it is. But actually, the more we got into the issue, we decided that a context-specific inquiry might be better. I think we've generally heard from the mayor's administration through someone in the mayor's office that they kind of don't favor allowing someone from outside the city limits to sit on a board or commission. But nevertheless, the committee's looking into it and asking the question of a number of boards and commissions. And this is one of the ones I volunteered to bring the question to and just invite conversation around. So that's kind of the request today is, what are folks' impressions and ideas about that? The types of things we discussed in the committee were, concerns about appropriateness of a non-city resident making decisions about city policy or about allocation of city resources, for instance. Arguments in favor tend to be, stronger coordination between a city and non-city community. Environmental Commission, for instance, was looking at things like watersheds and airsheds that exceed city boundaries, so maybe it makes sense sometimes. The Arts Commission was looking at considerations like the fact that not everybody who wants to live in the city can afford to live in the city, and that shouldn't necessarily functionally exclude them from being able to participate in the community, which may have more porous boundaries. So those are some of the things that we were discussing, and really I just wanted to open it up for a little bit of discussion as time allows, and if we wanted to come back, depending on kind of what the will of members is, come back in the future with some sort of formal recommendation that we could send to the council's committee. We could do that. It's also not strictly required. I just agreed to open it up for conversation.
Well, I'll allot 5 minutes of open discussion here. So in the next 5 minutes, is there anyone who would like to ask questions of Mr. Flaherty or make any observations on his request? Mr. Binder.
I would say that in cases where the city has had more difficulty filling commission seats, I think that the notion of loosening the eligibility requirements might make sense. And in fact, that is, I believe, something that several commissions took up, not the residency requirement, but other types of requirements that had been laid out. Maybe, for example, the parking commission had fairly specific and strict requirements, and then the city was ultimately not able to consistently fill those seats, fulfilling those requirements. That said, my observation is that this commission is more fully able to, be fully staffed. So maybe there are other commissions that might benefit from this more, from that idea. I don't feel like the Transportation Commission is, I don't really see that there would be much of a outcome change either way for this, at least for this commission. So.
Other observations from members? Mr. Strasburg.
To speak to the context of it, transportation is often done at a regional level because you travel from one place to another. So we have things like the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a regional unit. It's these regional council of governments in larger places that often are planning transportation. We have unigovs that often are involved in transportation. And contextually, I know that we have a lot of people who commute into town, either because we have this large hiring employers here, or they're priced out of Bloomington. And then while they're here, they might be pedestrians, right? They might bike around. So I think it could be appropriate contextually for a transportation commission to consider that.
Further comments? Members on my left, any thoughts? Well, I'll point out that with the advent of Ms. Sukoruchko, we have a full commission for the first time, 9 members. That has not been the case since we organized last June. In contrast, the predecessors to this commission all had trouble at some point finding members. Perhaps there were too many seats to be filled. Certainly, it helps that this is a commission that was created with the cooperation of the city executive that has allowed us to reach this day. So as far as we're talking about having trouble filling seats, I don't think that we're having as much trouble with this commission, and so I think that's good. As far as whether or not we should be taking the input of people who are not city residents on this commission, it is an important and I think abiding question. And it's one that I've had conversations with Mr. Connell about with respect to whether or not we should, for example, open up bus transit to outside the city. And when I authored the resolution calling for it in 2023, it was under the understanding that provided that the served locations outside the city found a way to pay for the service that they were getting. So it was a conditional opening. But I'm a little leery about giving any kind of authority to an entity that has actively objected to any city policy because the city's finances they believe that the city's getting too much money, or that the city shouldn't have complete control over an entity that it owns. So I'm sort of ambivalent about it. I'm content with the way the commission is as it is. I'm not entirely opposed to it, but I remember being told once a long time ago when it came to transportation projects, some of the best advice a consultant gave me was the fewer jurisdictions involved, the better. The more likely you are to get decisions made. But having said that, one person on this body who's not in the city, it could be worse. Any other thoughts, Mr. Flaherty?
Well, Mr. Stossberg brings up an interesting point about regional units. We do have the MPO, which covers a broader area than the city of Bloomington alone, and it does have a Citizens Advisory Council, among other entities, to weigh in. I even wonder about, there's some other kind of analogs, like the county surveyor having a non-voting ex officio seat on Plan Commission, right? Or things like that. We've had some similar approaches on other commissions, and that could always be something to explore as well, either voting or non-voting designee from like the MPO CAC, for instance, if we wanted to enhance, kind of coordination with an entity that's outside of, strictly outside of city limits. But I tend to lean in favor of probably city residency on this commission specifically because of the policy and funding implications, but that's just my personal opinion. Yeah.
Do you wish there to be, we're at our limit, do you wish there to be any action taken by this body, such as a resolution to consider?
I would defer to the members. I'm happy to report back what the thrust of what was said, who spoke to it, to the council committee, and they can kind of do with that what they like. Or if someone would like to take the initiative to make a formal proposal at our next meeting, I'm okay with that too.
I just want to point out here that we are at the point in the meeting where we're essentially setting potential future agendas. So Mr. Flaherty bringing up this point with the potential that we might make it an action, we might ask staff to make it an action item for a future meeting. So if you're saying that there's no further need, that's fine.
Yeah, it's not a formal request from the committee. I would leave it to any commissioner who wants to bring a formal proposal on that front. Okay. Otherwise, I'll report back what y'all have shared.
Thank you. Any other commissioners who have a topic to discuss? Mr. Strasburg.
Just one quick anecdote about that. I used to work here in a wing of this building. We had an e-bike commuter who lived near Ellettsville and used some of the excellent Greenway facility, had a really pleasant e-bike commute into town. And so while we think about people living outside of town as definitely driving to town, that's not necessarily the case.
Any other topics for discussion? I've got one or two if nobody else does. Okay, first is, I believe the topic of snow and sidewalks came up earlier. Did anyone want to see an item on a future agenda to discuss snow and sidewalks? Mr. Flaherty.
What would be the appropriate type of exploratory discussion here, I guess, to have maybe a report from the respective departments with respect to how they feel the city's pedestrian network was able to perform in like the 2 weeks following the major snow event. So maybe a report out on, relative to our goals, how we did, and then an opportunity for questions and discussion that might inform policy making or policy changes, proposals that would come.
Yeah, can we get general staff thought about this topic?
What's the right structure? Thank you.
It's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer, being honest. I know at some point this year, I've heard our Public Works Department wanting to talk generally about sidewalk operations, snow being one component of it. And so I think that this topic is generally on their radar for a future agenda, but more broad than just snow specific. So just to know, I think that this will be an opportunity at some point in this year. Another thought is, I guess, when, we have a list of various inquiries that can come forward, and those can be generated by members of the commission or the public too, and this feels like a topic that could be worthy of an inquiry as well. So I think this discussion opportunity will present itself at some point, but if there is a desire for specific inquiry, that we would welcome that.
Right, I forgot that there are 3 different things we consider: petitions, resolutions, and inquiries, and this is the moment where a member could form an inquiry and say, hey, I want to put this on the agenda, and it will be discussed at about this point of the meeting. So if anyone does have an inquiry on snow, sidewalks, or the general management of sidewalks by Public Works, this is a good discussion point for it. And is this the only time at which an inquiry can be requested, or can a commissioner request it between meetings?
It can certainly happen outside of meetings, and frankly, some of the inquiries you've seen have come from the public.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, any further conversation on this topic? On my right? On my left? Okay, no inquiries forthcoming there. Second question is, what's up with the supposed parking report? Where is it?
Yeah, I know parking services is not here. I know, let me quickly pull something up because they did give me an update. Big picture, the project has slowed down slightly because the consultant project manager working on this project left the firm. And so there has been some turnover on their side, so that has slowed things down. But I know that that topic will certainly be coming forward, but just at a slower pace than originally presented.
Is it possible that we can see it by next month's meeting?
I don't know if it exists because I just don't know the status myself, but I know it is in development and in coordination and on the radar and will be coming.
But it's in Public Works' hands at the moment.
They are managing the project, yes.
Last question has to do with the closure of Kirkwood. So we recently heard an announcement from Economic and Sustainable Development that they were now recommending that Kirkwood be reopened. And I think one of the arguments that they were making was that we were supposedly, quote, losing thousands of dollars a year in parking revenue. You can imagine how this made my ears perk up. And I would like to know if there's anyone here who can address that to any greater detail. And if not, can we make it an inquiry?
I don't know if there's anybody here that could speak to that specific element. I think that's a fair question on that. I know there were a number of other details, I think, that were a part of their report. But I guess just to restate, I'm hearing a question about the reported loss of revenue, parking revenue as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to make a request for an inquiry into the closure of Kirkwood to be heard by this commission, because if ESD invoked that as an argument for not closing Kirkwood, it goes against the principles that were established by the Parking Commission. That's not a primary reason to have or take away parking, is a concern about revenue, as far as I'm concerned. And so I'd like to know more details about why that was made. And I mean, I gather that an opinion has not been rendered yet on how Kirkwood will be opened or closed this year, but now would have been a time for us to be addressing it before they made a final decision.
And just on that, I can say, I believe at tomorrow evening, there's a Board of Public Works meeting where they are being presented the new guidelines for this calendar year. So that is happening, and it is the administration's plan to keep Kirkwood open, generally to vehicular traffic, except for certain special events and larger occasions where it would still be closed.
Okay. But that is the proposal of the administration, and I think it has to go before council, doesn't it?
It does not have to go before council, and the decisions, frankly, on the seasonal Kirkwood closure has been made, but the details of the program and the parklets are going to the Board of Public Works at their meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Well, I would still like to have that inquiry and have ESD or whoever is in charge of that decision address it.
Sure.
At the commission.
If you could offline maybe send us a quick email with some of those questions, and I can make sure they're prepared
Certainly.
for what those are.
Any other thoughts? Anybody else want to chime in on that? I didn't mean to.
I'll catch you up after the meeting.
Oh, are there things I don't know? All right. Well, this is why we ask. Are there discussion of topics on the docket from staff?
I don't think so. The one thing I believe is that there is a planning session meeting that is scheduled. I don't know, Hank, if you could, just a reminder.
So I sent out an email to all of you late last week about upcoming events regarding the Rogers Street, Madison Street, and Kinzer Pike corridor study. You all will be the steering committee for that corridor study, helping us move forward along and eventually form a long-term and short-term concept for this Rogers Street corridor. The upcoming event that we have is the Rogers Madison Kinzer planning session. That will be, I believe, that's Tuesday, March 3rd at 5:30 p.m. That will be next door in the McCloskey room. You can attend in person or virtually. And then I sent a couple other events your way for later in March. Those are in-person stroll and discuss events. Essentially, what those are opportunities for you and the public to walk and roll along the corridor with us and talk about what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're hearing, and really get a firsthand account of what your perspective is as a street user. And that will help us form that first base of where we are and where we need to go from there. Any questions about the upcoming events?
Any questions? Say again?
For the planning session, like any prep required from our side? How does it usually go?
Sorry, what was the question?
Any prep required from our
No.
side, from the
No.
commission? Just participate?
We
Okay.
will be going, because the January planning session was canceled because of the snow, this will be a longer session, but this will start off with a broad intro of what the corridor study is, talk about visions and goals and what your all's goals are from this corridor study as well. And then get into more of the meat of what's going on right now. What's the crash history? What's the pedestrian quality? What traffic volumes and speeds are we looking at? And we can really get into the nitty-gritty there and then move forward. So I'm very excited for a nice back and forth, but no prep on your end required for that.
Just to be clear, though, it snapped to my attention that you're calling for a meeting of the Transportation Commission in planning session, and that we are at the de facto steering committee for the Rogers-Madison-Kinzer corridor study.
Yes.
Okay, so this is, we're having a meeting on March 3rd, Tuesday at 5:30 in what room?
In the McCloskey room.
In the McCloskey room. This is a formal meeting of the Transportation Commission.
Yes, correct.
In planning session.
Correct.
Right, okay. Thank you for that. That's clear? Mr. Seaver, anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Any general public comment on items that have not been on the docket? Here is your opportunity. Please come to the podium. State your name. You'll have 3 minutes. What's that? Yeah. Please sign in and state your name. Also, if you are online and like to address the commission on an item that was not on our docket tonight, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Tim Clower. I live up here on the near west side, right across from the Banneker Center. I've been there for over 25 years. I just am here basically as part of a long process and pointing out a safety concern that I have on that I feel like many of us have on the near west side. Commuting by bike to work, I generally zip down to the B line. Fortunately, live a place where takes me 10 minutes to get to work, but every day play Russian roulette with 6 and Rogers trying to cross that intersection. It's just a couple blocks from here. Most of you have probably been around it, but unless you've tried to get across it during a busy time, you have no idea of the challenge that brings. I've looked at old traffic studies and accident reports. I know there hasn't been a lot of accidents there, but on my own part, I can tell you that there have been many close calls. The issue is that there are crosswalk lines going north and south, but there's nothing going across Rogers. Back in 2022, I reached out to Mallory Rickball, who was on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee or Commission, about potentially what the process was and how I could get somebody to potentially look at putting in a crosswalk there. She then later left. I've talked with Hank Duncan over the past several years, checking in every 6 months or so to see if anything has happened in that regard. As I've looked over the minutes of all the meetings going back to then, it's never came up, it's never been mentioned. I'm kind of frustrated, frankly. I'm trying to understand the process. I thought I was following what I should follow in order to get something on the agenda. I realize, obviously, now there's a lot on the docket, especially now that this commission has been, went from 3 to 1. The reasoning for this is not just mine. We're a block from Fairview Elementary at that intersection. We're straight down 2 blocks from Blooming Foods. While 7th Street was made the Greenway corridor, I live on 7th Street. I can tell you that the majority of bicyclists take 6th Street simply because they're not going up a giant hill, and you're not right in Fairview School with buses and traffic at the end of the day going through there. Hank has mentioned that this is coming up in a potential corridor study, as it sounds like you're just planning to do. But over the years, I've been told, well, it's on the top of the list, we'll get to it, we're going to talk to it, and it's not happened. So I just am here out of concern to bring it to your attention and just to have you think about people like me that want to bring something forward that they see as a safety concern.
That's your time, Mr. Clower. Thank you for the comment.
My pleasure.
Is there any other public comment on items not on the docket? Is anybody online? Okay. With that, unless there's any last-minute announcements, our next meeting will be what date? March 23rd?
The next regular hearing will be March 23rd. It's March 23rd?
March 23rd, Monday at 5:30,
Yep.
but we have a planning session March 3rd at 5:30 in the McCloskey Room.
That is correct.
We'll see everybody then. With that,
Right.
this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.